running from the heat, but the beat beats coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord moves all night right.
Hello, wackos. Welcome to Without a Country. This is Corinne Fisher. I am Corinne Fisher. Sorry, I wanted to put this here. I like to be loud in my own ear, so all I can hear are the sounds of my own voice. My dream, others' nightmare. Welcome to the show. If you're new here, welcome to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate it. This is Without a Country. I'm Corinne Fisher. I'm a comedian. I'm a podcaster, and I am a former candidate for mayor right here in New York City this year, 2025. I was part of Zoran Mania. Not on his team, my own candidate, but you know, everyone else pales in comparison to him, and that's fine. At least people are making a splash. I like to see it. And if you want to email the show, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. On this show, we discuss the most pressing news stories of the week. We fact check, we critically think, and we talk about things from the perspective of the right and the left and try to find some truth in the middle. So welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you've been here for a long time. Thank you for being here. Shout out to our dictator, Christopher Fungi, to our capitalist pigs, to our cuties. If you want to join the Patreon and get one exclusive video news story additionally, in addition to the show, every single week, you can sign up at patreon.com/withoutacountry. Your subscription can be as little as $6 a month, and it helps fund all the new subscriptions that we need to make this show run, as well as pays for our amazing producer, Mike Harrington, and our incredible paid intern, Crystal, who has been doing such amazing work and elevating this show. So thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you guys have been watching the yogurt shop murders. I am deep into it. The final episode 4 of 4 happens this Sunday, but I'm all caught up. And if you are, you know, into, it's interesting because one of the through lines of the series is a sister of one of the slain, their children, young girls. One of the slain kids' sister has such an interesting perspective about this case, having lived with it, having it, you know, had affect her absolute entire life. So it's an interesting conversation, not just, you know, about true crime, about grief, about shoddy police work, as always, about false confessions, which is a huge problem. I don't know, like if you're a true crime girly or guy, you know, and are very familiar with false confessions and how they're actually a lot easier to get a false confession out of somebody than you would think. I know, you know, this is similar to a cult where everyone goes, oh my God, that can never happen to me. I would never confess to something I didn't do. But if you're sleep deprived and you've been in a police interrogation room for 12 hours and you've barely peed or eaten or drank and you just need to get out of the room, it's incredible what the brain can do. They talk a lot about memory and how memory hates lapses in a story. So if you only remember part of a story, your brain, as almost like a survival mechanism, will fill in those gaps for you. So that was really interesting. Yeah, and the sister of one of the victims, she talks a lot about America's fascination with murder and how in part it disgusts her, but in part she recognizes that has what has kept this investigation alive for all these years. There's also another through line where a local Austin filmmaker kind of started covering the story, has all this incredible footage from, I believe it's happened in 1991. So 1991 when it happened, and just never, I think, number one, got a little bit emotionally exhausted with the project, and then too, felt a sense of responsibility in telling the story that became so overwhelming that she just put a pin in it for all these years, but is now sharing some of her footage in the documentary. So I highly recommend it. Also, for those of you who have been following me for a long time, you know, one of my absolute favorite true crime documentaries of all time is HBO's Paradise Lost, which covers the story of the West Memphis Three, most famously and most notably the head of the West Memphis Three. I put it in quotes because I do not believe him to be guilty. Damian Eccles, and who follows me on Instagram, which is one of my proudest follows. But Damian Eccles. The story reminds me a lot of the West Memphis Three and what was happening in that time, because the yogurt shop murders happened first, but then a couple years later, the West Memphis Three story happens, and those murders happened in 1993, and in both of them we see this time period of police kind of with no reasoning targeting people who wear black clothing, who live alternative lifestyles, who, it's giving early trenchcoat mafia, certainly people who are interested in the occult or any type of new agey or alternative spirituality were targeted. And some of the people that they called in or were accused with perhaps being involved in the crime, I would 100% have been arrested for this murder if I lived in Austin in 1991. So it's interesting. It really speaks to the times, and it shows how things have progressed. But at the same time, it shows, it talks about true crime and grief. And I just think it's a really worthwhile watch. And again, only four parts. So maybe not that much time, but it is one of the more sad docuseries on true crime and murder that I have watched, just because of all the things that happened to these girls. But anyway, I just wanted to recommend that because that's what's really been on my mind as far as television. And then a couple housekeeping things. A lot of exciting shows coming up this fall. So the Gash link for October 22nd at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, our Halloween Gash, our only Gash of the year, is officially live. I didn't post about it on my Instagram yet because I needed to break it up with the New York Comedy Festival announcement, but I wanted to tell you guys WACO's first. So I'm telling you first. So if you want to grab the tickets, go grab them now because this will sell out. So it's right in the Linktree link in my bio on Instagram at philanthropygal. I think my Linktree link is also on my Twitter and maybe my TikTok. I don't know. I'll check my TikTok. But yeah, so Gash, October 22nd. Get those tickets now. Telling you first if you want to go. And then you probably saw this if you follow me or Guys We Fucked on Instagram. But Guys We Fucked is officially part of the New York Comedy Festival. We're doing a big theater show at the Crown Hill Theater on Friday, November 14th. Super exciting. Our show is called Slutsgiving. We've never done a Thanksgiving themed episode before, but it seemed extremely appropriate because we are celebrating 12 years of being on the air that we could have not done without all the amazing fuckers out there. So this show is going to be like an interactive love letter to all of you. We'll have new segments. We'll bring, segments you've come to know and love to life on stage. And it's just going to be, the theater is beautiful too. We're so excited to perform there. And we'll also be doing a food drive. So if you are able, and I know times are tough, but you can bring one item of non-perishable food, and then Christina and I will be donating it to a local food bank. Personally, we're gonna drive over ourselves and make the donation. The next day, probably not the night of the show, because I don't think they'll be open. But we're really excited for that. So grab tickets. The Linktree link is also in my bio. And then last thing, I know there's a lot that I'm asking of you, but unfortunately, this is the way the world works. Companies finally realize that they have to do whatever the listenership wants because you guys are the fucking bosses. So we have a South by Southwest panel that I'm a part of that needs to be voted into the South by Southwest it needs to be voted into the South by Southwest Festival. That's the word I'm looking for. We have it until August 25th to vote for it. The link is also in my Linktree link in my bio. And all you have to do is create an account real quick, email address, name, and then you tap the heart next to Clown Killing Kings of Culture or whatever the hell. I never remember that. And then you make that red, and that means you voted for me. And that means I get to go to the South by Southwest festival and have a really interesting conversation about podcasting and comedy and running for mayor of New York City, and how our culture really does have an effect on our politics, our pop culture. I mean, and I think that's so interesting, and also feeds into the new segment that I dropped last week, where I did Without a Country pop culture, and I'll be doing periodic deep dives into things that I think have a greater effect on our society than one would normally think. Mike had the idea for me to react to Taylor Swift's New Heights podcast appearance, and so I made that happen, and the response has been really good, so I think we're going to continue to do that. I'll try to do one a week, but I don't want you to hold that to me, so maybe let's guarantee one a month right now, and then we'll see how it goes, because everything takes time set up and me paying other people to help. So but I really just genuinely enjoyed doing it. And even though I kind of always hope that people are more interested in world issues, I do genuinely believe that pop culture speaks to the times we live in, and we all need a respite from the terrors of the world. And I think Taylor Swift really provides that and helps us to be introspective and more empathetic and more self-aware. And I really like that about her. Michael, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I was. I just want to let everyone who's watching live know that already in the description of this episode, if you scroll down, click the more in the details, scroll down, you will see a link to that South by submission. So just click on that, set up the account. You can do it while you're listening to the show.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, and that one I really can't, I have no power, but that's free, costs you no money. And of course, I mean, then, if you live in or want to travel to the South by Southwest Festival, you can certainly do that and see that conversation happen in Austin. But it would be a really cool opportunity that I would be excited to be a part of. So yeah, that's all the housekeeping. Thanks for being here, and let's get into the show. So first off, our enemy of the state today is the Texas GOP. Okay. And obviously, the Texas GOP has been being who they are. But this week, I mean, this actually is my main story. So I'm going to hold the story for a little bit later in the show. But they illegally confined Texas Representative Nicole Collier. That's her allegation. We'll get into it more. She has filed a suit over the police escorts for House Democrats. And it's just a really interesting story. And we'll see what's true and what's false a little bit later in the show. But I can only imagine being a Democrat in a state like Texas. And while I don't doubt that this was partially performative, because I don't really believe any actions of any politicians are 100% genuine, and I wish I could report something else to you or tell you that's not so. But after my experience in New York City municipal politics, I truly don't believe anything is just what it is. And I had a real internal struggle about that, because I knew the kind of performativeness, I recognized the kind of performativeness that would get a reaction, but I, had taken a break from entertainment to stop doing that. I don't know, every moment of being in the entertainment business for me feels like a child who didn't get enough attention, so needs to act out to get their parents' attention. And it feels like that is positively rewarded when you're in the entertainment business. And it makes my skin crawl when people exhibit that behavior around me. It makes my skin crawl even more when people are receptive to that kind of behavior and think it's funny and cute when adult men and women are acting like children to get attention. It's nothing I want to be a part of, even if I am able to monetize it or garner attention. And I felt that even heavier in politics. So I do want to go into that story later on in the show with a grain of salt. And, also the stories were acting like, she was in there and had nothing, but she had suitcases, she had blankets. It's an interesting story because although I think it is fucked up what the Texas GOP did, I also think it's like, okay, well, she wasn't really inconvenienced. She had lots of luxuries in this setting. So again, we'll dive in a little bit deeper, but just, in a time when so many people actually are homeless, because someone was very upset that I said unhoused last week, even though I was just talking about the homeless for so long that I needed to change up the word. So I didn't say homeless 75 times, which any good writer knows. But, someone was very upset by this. And I said, out of all the issues in the world, if the thing that upset you most about, I don't know, the 2.5 hour episode that we did last week was that I used sporadically the word unhoused instead of homeless to really break up the monotony of the monologue I was doing, then I feel like you're missing the point of everything that's going on in the world.
Enemy of the state.
But that's okay. Mike, did you have thoughts on this? Nicole Collier?
No, I mean, like you said, the whole thing feels...
It's giving Cory Booker, for sure.
Exceedingly performative, and a thing where it's like, look at how evil these Republicans are. The good Democrats are going to save us. And it's like, we all know who you're cutting checks to. Come on.
Well, wait, is this another Israel commentary?
I mean, it's more about, just keeping the war machine going in general. I mean, in this week, it kicked up way more in Eastern Europe than it did in Israel. So, that's where my current ire for the American war machine is going. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I guess what I'll say here, let me just scroll down to where I get into this.
But the idea of she wasn't inconvenienced when she's locked in a thing is like, I mean, look, if we're taking this at face value, this is wild and it sucks.
No, for sure. I'm saying it's just, when you read the headlines about it, it makes it seem like, and I hate to use this word when people are actually being starved to death as hostages, but it made it seem like she was being held hostage in that she had nothing. And then I see a picture of her where she literally has a sleeping mask and a blanket and, is in a nicer chair than I'm sitting in right now. So you're like, okay, where is the truth in here? And listen, I commend her. I commend her for holding strong. We need politicians who are not afraid to stand up to the masses. And there's a lot of bullying and a lot of corruption going on. So I'm sure she will pay for this behavior in other ways. But, it's also, when we're saying, I don't know, it's just another discussion on what is brave, what is performative, what is self-serving, what is serving the people, I guess, are the questions that I have. And just to summarize what's happening, so, in Texas, they finally mapped out the congressional. They were redistricting the congressional map, and we'll get into that later and exactly what they're doing because that's kind of finished. But they were having this heated fight over a mid-decade congressional redistricting plan, and Collier and other Democrats walked out of the Texas House to deny Republicans a quorum and delay the vote. When they returned, Republican leadership required lawmakers who had fled to sign a permission slip authorizing state troopers to escort them if they wanted to leave the Capitol. And Representative Nicole Collier refused to sign, calling it an assault on her dignity and staying overnight on the House chamber floor in protest. She even filed a lawsuit arguing that the requirement amounted to illegal confinement. And I like that, and I agree with her. And I think things can be both performative and genuine, like part and part. And, I don't know. This is the first, that I'm really hearing of her was this week. I have to look into more who she is. I read her Wikipedia and everything, but then, you have to wait and see, is this someone who's looking to advance their career? I'm sure that most people are. Is she going to announce that she's running for some higher office soon? Does her campaign need donations? These are all questions that I have, and I And I don't like that. And it gives me the ick. But that's what's going on right now. Yeah, and she's been representing Tarrant County's House District 95 since 2013 when you go to her website. It's texasrepcollier.com. She's a fun website. It's pink. There's a star in it, which is kind of like, oh, I guess the star is because the star is more of a Texas thing than like I'm a star. Anyway, all right. Moving on with the show, let's get into the WACO mailbag. So something very interesting happened this week. I don't know if Mike noticed it in the inbox, but, we get, pitches for guests on this show, certainly. But this week, there was two people who were pitched. One person pitched themselves, and another person was a consultant pitching, I guess, their client or a client that their firm represents. And they both had to do with Israel. And although I'm not as sus of Israel as Mike is, it did make me go, like, what is happening here? Are people involved in the Israel conversation, and I'm saying Israel because these were people who both in some way represented Israel. One is just a conservative person who said that he likes to fight anti-Semitism, and then I looked him up, and I'll share with you all the kinds of things I found. And the other person is seeming like a peace activist who hails from Israel. I went through the articles that he has written and stuff, and they seemed, you can't obviously, like, if you live in Israel, you live in Israel. There's nothing that you can stop about that. And he seemed like he truly is like fighting for peace, but it just like made me go, what is going on? Like, are they just filtering any content about Israel and then basically sending like biased representatives to have conversations on this show? Because, while I would be happy to have someone with an informed, intelligent opinion who has a history of, talking and writing about the conflict that, has been going on for decades and decades in Gaza, I would not only have someone representing Israel on the show. You would have to have someone representing Israel and someone who has lived in or is currently living in Gaza, which, I don't think they're really zooming in right now. I think they have more important things to be doing. But I'm not going to start like a conspiracy theory on the show, but I just like put a pin in me going, this is interesting. And I'll see if I get more emails like that, because it just seemed like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I've been talking about this for a while, but now, because the press is so overwhelmingly in the past couple of weeks negative towards Israel, even in major news sources, are they now going podcast by podcast and sending representatives to help the image of Israel? It just felt weird, All right, so
I also don't like. I'm reading the finer points of his sources.
Which writer?
The one you included in the prep sheet.
I included, both. I
You put both in there?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, the first one.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, maybe I didn't put the second one.
No, you did. I'm looking at it now.
I did? Okay.
Oh, no. This is...
Yeah, I did. I did, right. I just put the article.
Okay.
I just put... Because it was not the person himself writing, so I didn't include, like a consultant's fucking pitch. I don't need to include that on the show. They're all the same.
Right. I want to hear flowery language about this dude.
Right.
No, like, I like how this guy is selling himself with, I had a one-on-one conversation with Alan Dershowitz, someone who I know has been to Epstein's Island more than once. Like, I'm not listening to anything you have to say if you're like, well, I talked to this guy.
But Alan Dershowitz is a respected attorney.
By whom?
By a lot of people.
Yeah. He's literally been on TV as an attorney since I was, he litigated whether or not Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame on ESPN 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy is he's a known lawyer, but I don't know.
So wait, where did you find where he's talked a lot about the Epstein files, but where did you see that he was on the list? You have your finger more on the pulse of the Epstein list than I do. He's listed. Where was he? Where was it? Because I see that he's Epstein's lawyer, so that he would have been to it. Yeah. So, but I guess we can't be defending anyone who represents Jeffrey Epstein in general.
He publicly stated that he was on Epstein's private island once. He claimed he was there for 24 hours with his wife and daughter.
Where's the source? What's the source?
I mean, I'm pulling this. This is the AI overview when I typed it into.
But that AI overview is wrong so often. They're just press on news like Epstein Island. Here, we can just do it this way. I'm not doubting you. I just want to know where the source was.
I mean, this was I checked the Dershowitz box when he got arrested. This was, we're talking 2018, 19, something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 1 month ago, The Hill has an article that says Dershowitz calls Jizzy Maxwell an Epstein Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. He's a Harvard law professor. Alan Dershowitz, who once represented disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. So I guess he knows everything. And again, I am so torn because obviously as a lawyer, you're going to have to take on clients who you don't think are good people. I couldn't do that job, but I think there is a point. It's where do you fucking draw the line? At a certain point, you have to say you are pure evil, and I don't even care if I know how to win this case for you. I cannot represent you, and I do feel like Jeffrey Epstein falls into that category. Anyway, let's go to the WACO mailbag again. If you want to email me, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. So Mike and I were just discussing the guy who was pitching himself. His name is Gurrrlllll. If you want to look him up, it's Lyakhov. He goes, "Hey, Corinne, I just listened to your latest episode and your breakdown of the whites-only town project." So this is a couple episodes ago. "And the shifting landscape around the Israel-Palestine conflict stood out to me. The way you weave together sharp commentary with a no-nonsense approach is the reason I keep tuning in." Do I actually believe this person listens to the show regularly? Not really, especially knowing that he voted for Donald Trump. But I don't know. We'll see. It just seems like if you're someone who voted for Donald Trump, you really probably I actually would commend you if you could stomach this show week after week. Obviously, Mike is in the booth, but he's being paid to be here, so it's a little bit different. Gregory goes on to say, "Given how you're willing to examine heated topics from both sides, I think a conversation between us would really hit the mark with your audience. As the youngest nationally syndicated columnist in the country, I've spent years advocating for school choice, which is an inherently conservative issue, tackling anti-Semitism. School choice is something that Republicans really go for because it's a way to legally segregate, in my opinion, tackling anti-Semitism and offering candid takes on the messier corners of American politics and the Middle East. My pieces show up everywhere from the Wall Street Journal to The Hill, and I've had the opportunity to tackle these issues on shows like Fox and Friends and Newsmax. I stay plugged into what's happening on the ground through direct conversations with folks like Alan Dershowitz and various elected officials. I would like to know the names of these various elected officials, which helps keep my perspective current and honest." And I'm just reading this aloud because this is just a full transparency show. I'm not roasting this guy. I think shoot your shot. That was one of my main takeaways from the New Heights podcast with Taylor Swift actually. So good for you, Gregory, for shooting your shot. And obviously you have reached out to many places before, and many places have had you on, and that's incredible. And keep doing that. I don't know if it's going to be this show, but I love that you're doing that. He goes on to say, "If you're open to a guest who isn't afraid to unpack polarization, challenge mainstream narratives," which I love that. I love language people use when they say challenge mainstream narratives. I can only imagine what we're going to be getting into, Gregory, "and discuss the realities behind stories like those you covered this week. I'd love to join you. My social reach is about 50,000, and I'd be excited to bring those listeners to Without a Country." What a gift, Gregory. Thank you. 50,000 whole followers. I'm just being a cunt now. And then, so of course I'm like, let me give this guy a quick Google, see what's going on. And the first thing that comes up is this Fox News video because, they can't read, so that everything has to be in a video. And I see this guy's face and I go, fuck, this guy's 12 years old. He's in high school, but he is extremely young. And the title of the video is High School Trump Supporter Describes Fear of Repercussions for Voicing Opinions. So I go, already, this is a real nail biter. High school junior Gregory Lyakov and his op-ed about supporting President Trump as a high school student and anti-Semitism on college campuses. So I go, all right, already I'm intrigued. And then, of course, I pull up this op-ed. Because nothing gets you attention these days in politics more than writing a saucy op-ed. Like, if you want just a burst of attention, pick a really heated topic and write an op-ed on the flip side of what almost everybody thinks or what a large percentage of people think, and you're going to get a lot of appearances for that, especially on Fox. So I'm going to read his op-ed, and then, I want you guys to decide if you want him on the show or not. That's what I'm... Gregory, this is a democracy here on Without a Country, and I am putting your fate in the hands of the viewers. You can, I'm not setting up a Google thing, but just at me or DM me or email me withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Yes. Maybe Mike's going to set up a Google poll. I don't know.
Well, what I was going to say is we have the community page on YouTube.
Oh, we do.
So that's a pretty good way to get people to interact. I can set that up
amazing.
Right now, actually.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, great. So then that's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the community page on YouTube, and can they just access that via the tabs on Without a Country? How are they going to get there? Okay.
Yeah, head on over to the Without a Country YouTube page. You'll see videos, lives, and then there is a community tab. Click on that, and the poll will be up in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, and so just vote after listening to this op-ed if you think that I should have this person on the show or not. Because I know there's always so many people say we have to stop platforming people with quote unquote bad opinions. I already have when you say someone has a bad opinion, that's for me, I'm already kind of an opinion is opinion. We can't start calling things good opinions and bad opinions. So it already lofts me a little bit. And I do agree that I think we should start platforming people who are contributing good in the world, and that good cannot really be questioned. People who are running incredible nonprofits, and are just doing work that is often not highlighted because it's not juicy. I do believe we should start platforming those people more. I also am understand that the show is what it is. I'm left-leaning, and if we want to have some more right-leaning voices on here, I think that would even out the show a little bit. So that's my thought process behind this. But you guys let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts behind this. That's what this show is all about. This op-ed was from February 2nd, 2025. And it said, it's hard being in high school and supporting President Trump. Is it? Okay. When President Trump finished taking the oath of office last week, all I could think about was how my fellow students would react at school the next day. It wasn't just about whether my 11th grade classmates in New York supported him. It was the tension that I knew would fill the air. And it's because he goes to school in New York, right? As we've seen, a lot of younger, especially males, are leaning more conservative. And so in another state, it actually you would not be in the minority, you would be in the majority. But it's just because this person goes to school in New York. People don't like what makes them uncomfortable. And Donald, what? Someone who has sex with a 13-year-old? Okay, sorry, I'm done. People don't like what makes them uncomfortable, and Donald Trump embodies discomfort. For better or worse, he's also a reminder of why I refuse to silence my beliefs on policy, politics, and my vision of true justice, even when it's unpopular. True justice is a crazy phrase, and I would love to hear more about that, Gregory. True justice. What is true? What is true? My first question will be, so you can prepare for it if you're allowed on the show, will be, what does true justice mean to you? Because I would really love to hear this. High school often feels like a miniature political system. You're expected to follow the rules, agree where it's safe, and avoid saying anything that might set you apart. Watching Trump's inauguration, I saw someone who has rejected these expectations entirely. And it made me question why students, teachers, and administrators are so afraid to do the same. Well, Gregory, the difference is that, it makes sense in a school setting, but the president of the United States can't reject the expectations of the people who voted him in just to be a bad boy. You understand when we elect someone president, it is with the belief and trust that they will act on the expectations we have for them, not just go rogue because it's the cool thing to do. I see what you're saying, though. One of the inauguration's most striking moments wasn't Trump's words or the crowd's reaction. It was the absence of Democratic leaders like former First Lady Michelle Obama, House Speaker Emirata Nancy Pelosi, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Their decision to stay away wasn't simply an act of protest. It was a deliberate refusal to confront the reality of Trump's presidency. Well, but also it was kind of like you just say in the paragraph before, what you like about Donald Trump is that he's doesn't follow the rules. And then these Democrats, a paragraph later, don't follow the rules. And you go, well, when they don't follow the rules, it means that they're just refusing to confront reality. So, do you like people who follow the rules or don't you? Their absence spoke volumes about a deeper discomfort. It wasn't just Trump they rejected. It was what his presidency symbolizes. A turning point in American politics where values like truth, inclusion, and decency seemed to them to be in jeopardy. It reflected something I see often, avoiding confrontation instead of addressing uncomfortable truths. I will say this is a pretty well-written op-ed. I mean, you're a high schooler. I've read many adult op-eds that aren't this well-written. At school, I've witnessed similar silences about controversial issues. Instead of engaging with complex topics like the immigration crisis or abortion rights, most students avoid them entirely. What students? Because all the young people I know can't stop talking about this stuff. I mean, they're not high schoolers, but they are, people who are, fresh college graduates. So it's not that many years off. I don't really have my pulse on my finger on the pulse of what's happening in high school, which I think is good news for me. It's not because they don't care. Speaking up feels risky. As someone with strong opinions, I've often hesitated to share them. I've rewritten posts, toned down arguments, and sometimes stayed quiet. When I do speak out, whether about my pro-Israel views or skepticism of cancel culture, the reactions can be tense, even hostile. I faced far too many instances where peers or teachers dismiss my unconventional opinions in class. I'm guessing your opinions aren't that unconventional. They're just unconventional in New York. But Trump's inauguration reminded me that silence isn't strength. Trump addressed America with his past rivals seated behind him. He spoke his mind, criticizing the Biden administration's failures and highlighting the political persecution he faced. Watching Trump take the presidency, despite protests, boycotts, and criticism, illuminated the power of refusing to conform. You're really spinning this. During his first term, Trump deported hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants from the U.S. While this approach was undeniably controversial, he pursued it with pride and is now expanding these efforts in his second term. That boldness is rare. Okay. Especially in my generation where even a controversial tweet could jeopardize your future. Yeah, but because of it, you love Trump so much. And I will say one thing that Trump has certainly in his second term has done for America is cancel culture doesn't really exist in the way it used to. And I have noticed that it's the right really hanging on to it. It's almost like all the people who the left tried to cancel on the right, loved being the victims and are holding on to that because being canceled, you wore a badge of honor, you were bad boys and girls. And cancel culture is certainly not at the height that it was. As a fellow victim of cancel culture, a liberal eaten by other liberals, I am very familiar with it. I certainly am anti it, but I just don't really think it's a huge thing anymore. You know, it rarely works, and if anything, most people who attempt, to be most people who people attempt to cancel at this point end up getting more famous than they would have been had they not been canceled. Fellow comedian Shane Gillis being a prime example of this. Being canceled, in my opinion, and I knew this that night and I stand by it years later, is the best thing to ever happen to Shane Gillis. He would not have been in that Bud Light Post Malone commercial had he not have been canceled. He would have gone on to be on SNL, and I don't think he would be the star that he is today, selling out huge theaters and I don't know if he's doing arenas yet, but his career is going fantastic, as it should be. He's a really good comedian.
Yeah, he just put 2 at the Garden up.
But that's not. Oh, I guess that is. It's the most famous arena in the world.
Most famous arena.
I know. I just think of arenas as as even bigger, because when you see it, like when you see this the places that Taylor Swift went on, those are stadiums though. Like
those are stadiums. There's the difference between a stadium tour and an arena tour.
I know. I've just been there so many. The thing is, I guess it's like when your own colleagues start selling out Madison Square Garden, it makes it less impressive. That's the thing. It just makes it more tangible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at that as like, all right, well, now that's the thing to add to the goal sheet.
For sure, absolutely.
I was going to say, though, it's almost like those articles you would read in like 2018, 2019, like, bosses can't figure out how to relate to their millennial, workforce. And it's like, they're 32 at this point. Like, you sound old writing that headline. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same way people talk about cancel culture now.
Oh, you're saying like this op-ed has like a feeling that's written by an older person? Well, it's interesting because even the email he wrote me, I thought I was going to be looking at a 55-year-old man when I Googled it. So when I pulled up a high school student, I was like, oh, this guy's like way younger than I thought, just based on the email that he wrote me.
Well, he said youngest syndicated columnist.
Yeah, no, I know. But I like literally just like, I was reading it really fast going through the thing. So before I got to that line, when I just was like skimming it and then I saw his name, I was like, this, like the energy of this feels. But yes, obviously when I read it word for word, I pulled that up. I'm not saying I agree with everything Trump has done. Famous last words. I don't. His handling of the 2020 election loss was anything but presidential, but the inauguration made me reflect on how often young people are told to play it safe. Our teachers remind us to filter our thoughts and avoid controversy, but progress has never come from playing it safe. I also really disagree. I think and I don't know how he's so young. Is this guy Gen Alpha or is he still Gen Z? Like, I don't even know when that break happens. But certainly Gen Z, I think, does anything but play it safe. I think they are so bold and so rebellious. And I mean, obviously, I don't know what's going on in your classroom. Like, if you're trying to talk about the things that you like you have to have certain viewpoints so you're not shunned. Like that, I can certainly see perhaps happening, but it doesn't seem like younger generations are asked in any way to play it safe. That's certainly not the story the rest of the world is getting.
He's a tweener. Looks like he's very tail end of Gen Z.
Okay.
Gen Alpha starts between 2010 and 2013.
Okay, thank you. History's greatest change makers, from civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. Oh my God, this is getting very high school essay when we're shouting out Martin Luther King Jr. To suffragettes such as Alice Paul, didn't worry about being liked. They worried. Well, and also, like, this is not necessary. I actually disagree with it because when I think about the difference between civil rights leaders like a Martin Luther King Jr. and a Malcolm X, I completely disagree because I go, Malcolm X was taking the, I don't fucking need to get along with white people. I don't need them to like me. Whereas I think a core part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s strategy was approaching it peacefully because in his estimate, he thought that he really needed white support and political support to transfer the message the way he wanted to. So I would argue that he actually did care about being liked because that was part of his actual strategy. They worried about making a difference. Trump's refusal to, like, I think he didn't maybe care about, like, getting arrested or feeling like legal repercussions, but, he was doing a much different approach, a much more, a nonviolent approach, because that was part of the strategy. Trump's refusal to mold himself to fit others' expectations is a modern, though divisive, example of that. This isn't just about politics. It's about how we live our lives. I think you thought that sentence was going to be a mic drop more than it was. Because it's isolated. You thought that was like your Chappelle moment. That sentence doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Of course, social media only amplifies this fear, where every word feels permanent and any misstep could go viral. Yeah, that's the world that you live in, for sure. Even college applications encourage conformity. Oh boy, this is a real, let me get out my tiny violin. The advice to build a personal brand often means hiding what's controversial, even if it reflects what we truly believe. I couldn't disagree more. I think the actual fastest and most successful way to build a brand in today's society is to highlight your most controversial opinion and keep creating content that backs that. And that's a big problem I have, because I don't have like a crazy hard left or a crazy hard right take, and therefore it's not entertaining because there's logic in it, and therefore it's not going to get as many hits. But I'm not going to just start pumping out either crazy conservative views that I don't agree with, or liberal views and talking points that kind of just mimic a lot of the people on my timeline that I also don't agree with. I now review every article I write for newspapers multiple times. Well, babe, you should have been doing that anyway. Not for grammar or tone, but to ensure my writing isn't too contentious for the college admissions officers who will soon determine my future. They don't determine your future. You're going to get into whatever college you're going to get into. And honestly, you probably could skip college and get along just fine in today's climate. Watching President, I don't know what you want to do, but certainly if you want to be a journalist, I would say skip college altogether and just go into journalism right now and save yourself a couple $100,000. Watching President Trump's inauguration made me realize that being politically incorrect or simply honest can make you unpopular, but it also means you're willing to fight for your beliefs. Whether you admire it or oppose it, Trump's presidency proves there's power in breaking the rules. Let's change that last word you used to laws. Because he's not. You act like he's slightly breaking social norms. This man is breaking laws and just finding loopholes wherever they exist and doing whatever the fuck he wants. That's quite different than breaking the rules or doing things non-traditionally. So this op-ed was in the New York Post. Yeah, and it does. It feels very old. You're a high school junior. You're 16, 17 years old. Why do you read like you're 98? I'm so curious. Do you have siblings? This is very much giving only child who grew up around adults and therefore has a very adult point of view. Also, it's giving I grew up in Manhattan and I aged past my, I grew up way faster than I should have had to. And I do have empathy for you or sympathy for that because that's not good. But yeah.
The questions I want to ask this kid are so different than the questions you want to ask this kid.
What do you want to ask him? Have you ever had a girlfriend?
Yeah, dude, have you ever seen a pair of boobs? That's what I want to know so bad.
I love that someone who is so anti-child sex trafficking in Epstein Island wants to ask a minor if he's ever seen boobs.
This kid, though, tell me this does not read like someone who's never seen boobs.
Yeah, but it does read like that, but I'm going to take his side on this because it's the people who don't see boobs in high school who change the world. And put that on a bumper sticker because I'm right. I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
This guy, we could have just received an email from the next Bill Gates. Did I like this piece? No, but would I be surprised if this guy goes far in life? Also, no. And while I don't agree with his thoughts, I certainly think it's really cool that he is at writing these columns and appearing on Fox and doing all these things at such a young age. I think he's going to go far in life for sure. And I think that's cool. So good for you. All right. So that's that. And then The second, so, vote in the community section on YouTube whether or not we should have Gregory on the show. I'm leaving it up to you guys, right? Because there's like a part of me, and also because I never get to talk to high schoolers, I think Mike's looking at me. I'm like, that's a good thing, Mike. If I had a regular back and forth with high schoolers, that would not be good for me. So it's been a long time since I've talked to a high schooler. So I would love to know what the modern high schooler, especially in New York, with a conservative point of view, there is something interesting to me there about that. But I'm also like, is this just a group of kids who's grown up watching too many, debates on Jubilee and is going to try to, like, I don't want to have, like, Gregory, if you're trying to have like a gotcha conversation with me, I'm too old for that. I don't want to do that. But if you want to actually like prepare something and the people of the community allow you to be on the show, I'm very curious to see like why you're such a Trump head, why you're such a fanatic, especially term 2. And Mike wants to ask you if you've ever seen boobs. So prepare that answer as well, please. And then the second person who was pitched to me this week is this guy named Mickey Gitson, who also is a journalist, but he does a lot of work with, what's the name of this fund that he does work with? Let's see. Interesting. Okay. So since 2017, Mickey has served as the executive director of the New Israel Fund, NIF, the leading organization supporting progressive civil society in Israel. And of course, I immediately went to the New Israel Fund to see like how biased this was. And the first thing that you get when you visit it is a pop-up that they are raising money for Gaza. And I didn't have time to do all this, but I would like to trace like where that money is going, because it's very easy to have a pop-up saying that you're raising money to support the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, not to support, sending missiles or something, to them to hurt them. That was the pop-up that I first got. And it does seem like that's what they're doing, but I'm always wary until I dig a little bit deeper. It says the New Israel Fund mobilizes Israelis to make positive progressive change by strengthening Israeli civil society and fighting the inequality, injustice, and extremism that diminish Israel. So far we seem like we're on the right track. We invest in long-term change, nurturing progressive grassroots activism and civil society leadership, even while we remain ever at the ready on the most urgent issues of democracy in Israel. NIF advocates for equality for all Israelis. That means we defend women's rights, fight for the rights of non-Orthodox Jews, and fight for equality for LGBTQ Israelis. And now you go, this is all good, but these are a lot of the arguments that people use, in defense of annihilating Gaza. It means we empower Israelis working to uphold human rights in the occupied territories and oppose the settlement enterprise. And then you go back and you go, okay. It means we advance civil rights and access to housing and education for Palestinian citizens of Israel. It means we protect minority rights. It means that we stand for the values of democracy in Israel. So again, when I got this email, I was kind of just like, this seems more like we are trying to protect PR surrounding Israel, but let me know. And again, I've said it many times on this show, I don't think that it's fair that what is happening gives all of Israel a bad look. It is the government of Israel that, is partaking in this. So that doesn't mean that if someone is Israeli that we should think they're a bad person. And again, that we saw this week, plenty of protests going on. So yeah, that's just like a little bit of background from that email. And then this is the most recent piece. This is also an op-ed. It's from April 6, 2025, and this is by this Mickey Gitson. I got to put this into the archive thing so I can bypass this paywall. One sec. But yeah, just kind of a very interesting week of emails and guest pitches. All right. So, and this is from Haaretz, which is super Israeli. Opinion: we need big goals to counter the assault by Netanyahu's regime on Israeli democracy. Again, by Mickey Gitzin, Gitzin. Why did the prime minister find it so urgent to dismiss the Shin Bet chief, to renew the war in Gaza, and to begin the move to dismiss the attorney general, all in the space of a few days? In her book, The Shock Doctrine, Naomi Klein, pin that he's mentioning Naomi Klein this early in the article, illustrated how big crises in the world have been used to introduce drastic economic reforms while the public was too confused to resist. The Israeli ruling coalition acts in a similar way, except that instead of an extreme free market, the goal of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's shock doctrine is dismantling all the essential components of democracy. His role models are those hollow regimes that carry out democratic procedures without their essence. Orban's Hungary, Erdogan's Turkey. The method is a simple one. You create a maelstrom of daring illegal moves simultaneously and on all fronts. While the public is reacting to the dismissal of the head of the Shin Bet Security Service, you advance draconian legislation against NGOs. When everyone is preoccupied with the status of legal advisors, you advance bills that will make it easier to disqualify Arab candidates. Okay. The resources available to the regime are many and varied, and they are available to it on a daily basis. The intent is for citizens to just grow tired of fighting at some point. The assault on Israeli democracy did not begin with the current government. Over the last decade, we have seen more and more attempts to gradually eat away at the democratic system, each time invoking other excuses and explanations. The loyalty and culture law, limits on foreign funding for NGOs, and persecution of lecturers who voice critical views. But what used to be a creeping change has now become a salvo of anti-democratic legislation encompassing everything at once: the independence of the judiciary, freedom of the press, civil society, protection of minorities, even equality of politicians before the law. With everything happening all at once, the public finds it hard to process the deluge, and resistance by public institutions is eroding. How can you focus when each day brings forth some new edict? And this is interesting because, a lot of the feelings that people seemingly are feeling in Israel are what many Americans are feeling right now. And that is part of what I've been trying to, say all these weeks, is that I think a lot of Israeli citizens are also struggling with Netanyahu's moves, just the way Americans are struggling, or many Americans are struggling with Trump's moves. And that is why I do feel like that we should have some empathy for, some individual Israelis, who are going through this. I mean, I don't know where you want them to just leave their home. I don't know where they were supposed to go. The advantage of such a move for the coalition is clear. Even if some initiatives fail, others will be passed quietly under cover of the tempest. Should they succeed with 100%? Excellent. Should they succeed with just 50%? Groundwork has been laid for the next move. Those who unwillingly aid these moves are those in the political center who understand the damage inherent in the new laws, but who, for tactical reasons, prefer to make their peace with some of the legislation, even going so far as supporting it. You might call this the median method, looking for the middle point in some public debate, then declaring it to be a worthy, balanced position, regardless of its essence. But when the middle point keeps moving to the right, compromise is nothing short of surrender in installments. When Itamar Ben-Gvir demanded that the Shin Bet chief be put in solitary confinement, and members of the coalition threatened public servants, the median method is extreme in and of itself. What is happening in Israel nowadays is not a debate about checks and balances and their place in democracy, but an organized attempt to completely dismantle the system. All talk of governability and the will of the people is just a smokescreen. Okay, so really giving shades of America here. Can anyone claim that the will of the people is better expressed in Turkey today than it was a couple of decades ago? Does anybody think that Hungary is more democratic? Democracy is a holistic idea, bigger than the sum of its parts. It is a complex system that requires involved citizens, separation of powers, laws, and norms of proper conduct. It needs free media, an independent judiciary, government monitoring, and equality before the law. When one of these components is damaged, democracy as a whole is weakened. When they are all undermined, it is another regime altogether. The good news is that we have not lost the fight for democracy yet. The tremendous protest in 2023 proved that even a government with an absolute majority in the Knesset can be stopped. This protest helped the judiciary prove its mettle when the High Court of Justice struck down the abolition of the reasonableness clause despite a campaign of threats and scaremongering. An entire generation of Israelis has undergone an intensive course in street citizenry, and the last word has yet to be said. Even now, we should not be waging a rearguard battle. Leaders of the opposition and of the protest must embrace a daring, far-sighted attitude no less than their right-wing counterparts. They must declare clearly that on the first day of their rule, they will cancel all of the anti-democratic legislation, restore judicial independence, and strengthen the institutions of democracy. We can learn much from the way the polls handled a similar challenge. After the Law and Justice Party damaged democratic institutions, Donald Tusk returned to politics on a firm platform of restoring democracy. No balances and no compromises, but a total rejection of populist reasoning. The result was a historic victory and a real opportunity for democratic renewal. In the case of the Israeli shock doctrine, too, we must unite around a far-reaching, courageous democratic vision. We must demand of our leaders that they defend not only what remains, but that they build a stronger, more equitable, and inclusive democracy. With extremists and messianic types thinking big, we cannot make do with small goals. To combat their tyrannical model, we require a vision of a shared, free, and open future. If we succeed, these days will become not only a war in defense of democracy, but also an opportunity to upgrade and deepen it. So it gets a little muddy at the end, but I'm like, okay, we're having a long conversation about democracy. Like, obviously, this is a person who thinks that Netanyahu is doing things that he shouldn't be doing, much like most Americans think that Trump is. But ultimately, it still feels like that, that he wants to conquer, or in some way like that, like conquering Gaza is still upholding democracy. Like, it got very muddy at the end. What do you think the point that it was even trying to make at the end? Because I'm like, okay, in the beginning, I'm like, yes, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And then at the end, I go, so what are we saying here? Michael, are you listening?
Yeah, I'm listening. Sorry, I was just rereading the last paragraph because I didn't.
Right, it got a little muddy at the end, and you go, all right. So what's the hard thesis here?
I mean,
the hard thesis is that we have to uphold democracy, but democracy is like one of those words where we keep redefining it. So I go, what does that even fucking mean anymore? I go, we're just saying words. And I go, what does that even mean? I mean, I used it earlier today. I mean it in that like we are all going to vote and make a decision. That's how I meant it, but.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I like anybody who is, being like, hey, this is messed up what's going on. We should do something about this,
Right. Because he's someone who he in his writing and in the things I see, I go, okay, I like this. And then every now and then there'll be a sentence where I'm like, are you just trying to trick me?
Yeah. Am I just going along with this?
Right. You're like, oh, this seems really good, but the wording at the end of this is too murky because I'm like, are you saying that what the Israeli government is doing is like a travesty, or are you saying like, yes, Netanyahu has exhibited an overreach of power. That being said, we need to fight, the Palestinian, or we need to fight Hamas. I would be guessing it would be, we need to fight Hamas to uphold democracy in Israel. And it's more of like a, George W. Bush type energy for America, where it's like, no, we need to fight these people because they are trying to threaten democracy, just like the same way, Western democracy, basically, Western culture.
I had like a fun I was hearing like a fun thought experiment today. Like all right, like let's say, right, there was a free and completely, equal democratic election in Iran that saw the election of somebody who was like super into democracy, the will of the people, but their terms were, hey, we're not going to do business with America. We are not going to recognize Israel as a state. We are, we're going to do, what's in the best interest of Iran, versus like a militaristic coup that took over the government by force and immediately said, hey, America, our oil markets are open to you. Who do you think they're backing? Because it's for sure not the free and fair democratic elections. You know what I mean? So it's like anytime you bandy about democracy as the like justification for troops on the ground somewhere, like there is like a thing that perks up me where it's like, are you really quoting? You're quoting, this is democracy. You're quoting. Okay, that's in the same box as Alan Dershowitz to me.
Oh boy, Alan Dershowitz is the theme of the day. Well, yeah, it does feel like this, like Mickey was just throwing around democracy a lot, and I go, please clearly state your thesis here.
Well, there's also like, the more I look into it, like and
also just like sorry to interrupt, but also just being familiar with Haaretz as a website, I don't think they're allowing an op-ed that is anything but stop. Don't let Gaza take over.
Right, like I don't think that's getting to print. I think your editor is stopping
For
any
sure.
like, hey, let's stop the genocide that's going. Like they can't write that,
Right. I think the furthest you can go in a publication like Haaretz would be like peace for everyone.
Well, I mean,
and that's fine.
Given what they're talking about, with the tyrannical power grab of Netanyahu, and to a lesser extent, as you were drawing those parallels, Trump. Like to have an op-ed that is strictly questioning him is like, seems like its own form of protest. You know what I mean? But
sure.
Nobody's crossing that line to say, hey.
Well, but the thing is, even before October 7th, it was, people were protesting against Netanyahu, and many people were extremely unhappy with him. So I don't think that's, yeah. So it
also
is
worth noting,
yeah,
that during the October 7th attacks, the people who were chilling at that music festival, a group of young free thinkers who were out listening to electronic dance music. What do you think the odds are that they were, conservative, hard right-wing voters?
Yeah, no, they weren't.
Right. The politician who was, labeled as the hero of October 7th, somebody who was literally in the streets fighting Hamas on that day, is now being vilified and dragged through, dragged through the ringer because he is openly in opposition of Netanyahu.
Who is this?
I cannot remember the guy's name. I'll look him up, but
right.
His moniker was like the hero of October 7th.
Got it.
And now he's like, like I said, being vilified. And my question is like, all right, why was Hamas in that guy's district? Like, was this, I've been saying since December of 22, this seems kind of fishy.
Sure.
Or 23, whenever it was.
Sure.
It seems kind of fishy. Now it's to the point where it's like, all right, not only is it kind of fishy that it happened, it's kind of fishy that a lot of the people who were targeted were Netanyahu opposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, just with everything that we know about the how good the IDF is, how smart Israeli surveillance is, it seems like guys coming in on hang gliders to rape is not something that would have just gotten past the IDF. It is extremely hard to believe.
The gentleman I was thinking of is Yair Golan. He is the hero of the Democrats in Hero of October 7th. He is the leader of the Democrats, a left-wing political alliance in Israel.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see this. Okay. All right, cool. He's a graduate of Harvard. All right. Moving on to our next WACO mailbag. This is from WACO Adam. Hello from Montreal, sending this case from Idaho where a graduate student specializing in sexual burglary was clocked by other students and academic staff. The people have to share spaces with him, expressed the problems in his behavior, and foresaw his dangerous impulses coming out long before he killed 4 of them. Detached misogynistic claims aside, reports of stalking, burglary, underwear theft were made, and nothing was done by the authorities nor the school itself. This article from Fox looks a lot like ABC's and CNN's, but it's meeting the low bar the channel set for itself, and that's why I picked it. Sending my best wishes, no tariffs to Corinne and Mike, a damsel in distress, but his name is Adam, so he spells it like that. And then, so this is about the Idaho murders, and this is from August 18th, 2025, so just a couple of days ago. Idaho murder documents reveal victims' stalking fears and Kohberger's inappropriate behavior at school. So we can also, this is WACO Mailbag, but we can also file this under domestic violence, and we have another domestic violence article out of New Hampshire this week. But again, this follows the same format that almost every DV story or unrequited love or kind of sexually explicit, preying on, many women kind of thing happens. And that's like, there were signs, clear signs. This person was clocked multiple times as having behavior that was not normal and scary and possibly violent, and the authorities did nothing, right? So Kaylee Goncalves reported being followed. Fellow students flagged Brian Kohberger as concerning. Excuse me, I'm just not getting enough oxygen in the basement. I'm not tired. Idaho State Police have released more than 500 pages of documents compiled during their investigation of the University of Idaho student murders and into killer Brian Kohberger. They include dozens of witness interviews, photographs, and other evidence obtained before and after Kohberger's arrest from the start of the investigation. This let me just also stop and say, so you guys know how I used to work at a talent management company. There's an actor that we used to represent there. I don't know if they still represent him. Named Stephen Kunkin, and this Idaho murderer freaks me out because he looks just like Stephen Kunkin. So if they do a Netflix movie about this, which I'm sure they will, you guys gotta hire Stephen Kunkin. I haven't seen him in like 10 years, so I don't know if he looks too old now, but Stephen Kunkin's the actor you need. Okay, back to here. I just got Stephen Kunkin a job. I mean, that's good, right? Is that not good casting, Harrington? He usually doesn't wear glasses either. I think that's and Stephen Kunkin's quite, like, this guy looks kind of like big in Frankenstein's monster. Stephen Kunkin's pretty tall and like towering. It's a good casting. Okay. And he's a good actor too. So from the start of the investigation, when they had found leads to the end after Kohberger was already in custody and police had DNA linking him to the scene. Some of the interviews shed new light on the victims as well as Kohberger's mindset before the slayings. A fellow graduate student at Washington State University, where Kohberger was pursuing a PhD in criminology, LOL, told state detectives that Kohberger butted heads with classmates and faculty. Kohberger was rude and condescending toward women whose field of study focused on sexual burglary, she said, and other people in the department pegged him as a potential incel and possible future rapist. Wow. I mean, imagine that's what your classmates are saying about you. You're a PFR, possible future rapist. That's also good merch. However, she told police they did not suspect he was the killer. Whoo-wee, shivers. She said he expressed interest in the emotions of what it felt like when committing a crime and how offenders might avoid getting caught. Kohberger had also briefly discussed the murders, which happened 10 miles away in Moscow, Idaho, with his peers, calling them horrible. He suggested that maybe it was a one-and-done type of thing, according to the documents. That's so crazy. Imagine trying to start your own rumor that you're not a serial killer, so we really shouldn't bother looking for you anymore. It was just like a one. He just like kind of felt like murdering one day, but he's over it. That was just like a phase he was going through. Whoa. There were other red flags. According to one person interviewed by police, Kohberger told a disabled classmate that his project partner needed to be physically perfect and that her disability would not be acceptable. Interesting. At one point, a professor had to escort a female WSU student to her car because Kohberger's behavior was of concern. The school received more than a dozen complaints about his conduct, including reports of inappropriate behavior. The documents also delve into concerns from Kaylee Goncalves, 21, one of the 4 victims, who said she believed she spotted someone stalking her from the tree line outside the house at 1122 King Road, just steps from the University of Idaho campus. In one incident, she believed a man was staring at her from next to a dumpster in the street near their house. In another, she told friends that a man followed her to her car in the parking lot at a nearby Winco grocery store, then tried to open her door after she got in. At another point, someone broke into Goncalves' parked car, moved some of her personal belongings, including lip gloss, placed her suitcase in the street, and stole her underwear. According to one interview, a WSU faculty member told police that a grad student there reported that her apartment had been burglarized in the weeks before the murders, and someone stole intimate items, including her perfume and underwear. The professor said she raised Kohberger's red flags with other colleagues in a meeting about his future in the program. He is smart enough that in 4 years we will have to give him a PhD, she said, according to police reports. Mark my word, I work with predators. If we give him a PhD, that's the guy that in many years when he is a professor, we will hear is harassing, stalking, and sexually abusing of I thought would be his students at wherever university he ended up. That is what a fucking quote. What a quote. When we say believe women, I actually think this is what we mean. I believe women when they say this. She also said that Kohberger's research on burglars differentiated sexually motivated burglars from regular burglars. And those 2 things are in quotes. The other victims were Madison Mogan, 21, Xana Kernodle, 20, and Ethan Chapin, 20. Next to Mogan's left hip, police found...
Do you think there's a part of him that's like, ew, I killed the dude?
Yeah, I was thinking of that, and in my head I was like, this is definitely like just a guy who was there and like got in the way. Next to Mogan's left hip, we should be like, are you gay? You killed a guy. Next to Mogan's left hip.
You probably loved him.
You loved every second of it. Just bully him.
You liked touching that dude, didn't you?
You loved it.
Oh, what a loser.
Next to Mogan's left hip, police found what would turn out to be a crucial part of the case, a tan leather Kabar knife sheath with Kohberger's DNA on the snap. Left behind on the victim's tan comforter in her 3rd-story bedroom. Whoops. Kohberger ultimately pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and another of felony burglary weeks before he would have gone to trial. The plea deal avoided the death penalty, and Kohberger received 4 consecutive sentences of life with no parole, plus another 10 years. He waived his rights to appeal and to seek a sentence reduction. This is a developing story, it says. Jesus Christmas. Yeah, it's meeting the low bar the channel has sent for. Okay.
Have you watched that video yet?
What video?
Of the victim impact statement?
No.
It's so worth it. I'll send it to you after this.
Okay, yeah, please do. Yeah, and I mean, again, not surprised that really anything that was presented in this article. Unfortunately, this is how this shit goes. And I'm actually going to go right into, I'll go back to the other things I wanted to do, but I'm going to go right into our DV watch, our domestic violence watch, because this is a huge story this week. And there's been a lot of stuff recently between, the ongoing New Jersey woman's murder that we talked about either last week or a couple weeks ago. So this is from the New York Post. Depressed mom of perfect family massacres husband and kids in horrific New Hampshire murders. Wait. I looked into this all wrong. Oh my God, this is actually crazy. What? This is what happens when you read an article with bias, guys. We actually just have a real life example of it right now. Yeah. What? How did I possibly read this wrong? This is crazy. Well, because I read the story in another thing, and then I picked the New York Post article because I thought it was catchier. But New Hampshire, what the hell? Is my mind this fucked up? Yeah, no. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is DV, but it's reverse DV. In that the mother did it. This is so staggering. This is why this is going to be the top story of everything, because the mother did it, not the husband. So depressed mom of perfect. My brain is actually scaring me right now. Depressed, but this is great. We read with our own bias, and we all know I have a bias against men, so I'm calling out my own bias on the show. The depressed mom of perfect family massacres husband, kids in horrific New Hampshire murder suicide just days after posting grim TikTok. So just you know, I look for the top stories of the week. And then I pick an article that I like by the headlines and kind of skim it. I fully don't read the article until I'm on air with you, so I can react genuinely in real time. Just so you're like, how the hell did you miss this? But this is actually crazy. So a depressed, and this is from the New York Post, so it's going to be cunty, which is why I picked the article from here. But a depressed, in quotes, mother fatally shot her husband and 2 young children before turning the gun on herself in their New Hampshire home. And this is interesting because we definitely see stories of like depressed moms killing the kids and themselves. A lot of times they usually don't kill the husband, though. So it's either husband kills whole family and himself, or mom kills herself and kids. Rarer for mom to kill husband and entire family.
That's how you know he was doing something wrong.
No, well, well, I had a theory, and this is completely based on the picture, that the guy was gay. But I also, another bias that I want to call out, which you know if you listen to Guys We Fucked, is I think everyone's gay. So I am always thinking that men are gay. A depressed mother fatally shot her husband and 2 young children before turning the gun on herself in their New Hampshire home, just days after sharing her ongoing struggles in a chilling video on social media, authorities said. Emily Long, 34, who was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, allegedly killed her husband, Ryan Long. Whoa, crazy name. Shout out to one of my besties, 48, and 2 children, Parker, 8, and Ryan, 6, in an apparent murder-suicide at their ill-fated Madbury home early morning, according to the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. Both youngsters were shot in the head. I mean, which is like, oh my God, just kill yourself. Well, the family's patriarch, who is reportedly battling terminal cancer, sustained multiple gunshot wounds, the state's chief medical examiner concluded. So, I mean, you know, I guess you're like, all right, well, this was, she kind of just moved it along for him. But, you know, I don't think that's the way you want to go. Oh my God, crazy. All 3 deaths were ruled.
You don't think shot multiple times by the person you love? You don't think that's the way you want to go?
Well, I mean, this is very dark, but there is a part of my mind that thinks maybe it was like a faster, more painless way to go, like depending on the circumstances. But like not if you had to watch your kids die first. Like that's horrific. And it says Emily Long posted a TikTok 2 days before cops made the horrific discovery. And the title is Making a Change. So wait, did she post this and the bodies are in the house and then she kills herself? Or is this before she decides to do the murders? All 3 deaths were ruled homicides, while the troubled mother's was deemed a suicide. It was a perfect family as far as we knew. Neighbor Bevy Cattell told WBZ-TV. It's just shocking we didn't see it coming. Police discovered the grisly scene Monday night after receiving a haunting 911 call reporting multiple deaths inside the family's massacred home. A gun was located near their lifeless bodies, officials said. The couple's 3-year-old child, the lone survivor of the slaughter, was found alive and unharmed inside the house and is now in the care of family members. And like, I hope that kid gets enough therapy to have a normal life, but or maybe is like so young that they can just repress these memories, and like there's no way to healthily repress memories, but just kind of move away from this. I don't know. Investigators said they have since learned of serious concerns and ongoing issues at the time of the violent rampage, but didn't elaborate. One of the biggest questions they have right now is motive. Why? Yeah, because I mean, it sounds like postpartum depression, but if her youngest child was 3, it seems like that would be too long for that kind of, I don't know, psychosis to be going on. But I don't know, like, so wait, like, what is the, Let me ask. I'm gonna ask my assistant. ChatGPT. What is the longest known, or on average, how long does postpartum depression last for? Let's see what it says. So severe cases can persist 1 to 2 years if not properly managed. Like, that is what I was kind of thinking, because I know people who it lasted like a good 1 year. But there are extreme cases, like where the longest known / chronic cases that says some women develop chronic postpartum depression lasting several years or even evolving into major depressive disorder if untreated. A study from the Journal of Affective Disorders reported approximately 30% of women with PPD still had symptoms after 3 years without adequate intervention. Risk factors for longer duration include history of depression or anxiety, lack of social support, severe symptoms at onset, untreated PPD, or coexisting stressors such as financial or relationship issues. Obviously, I think your husband having terminal cancer when you have 3 children could definitely qualify as a coexisting stressor. And, you know, if he's gay, that could also be another one. But I don't want to. This poor guy was fucking murdered. We don't need to talk about this. Okay, so I just wanted to, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, it seems like too late into it to still have postpartum depression, but it, like we see, it is possible. Because that's what's happening when, like, I feel like when people, like, it's like a severe depression when you're murdering the children as the mother, and I think that's probably when you're the dad, it's just because you met someone new, and I think that's probably one of the more difficult things that they are trying to grasp to understand how this came to be. While a motive remains unclear, the family's matriarch, who worked as director of operations at the restaurant chain Wingett's, well, that's part of why she's depressed, often posted on social media about her struggles and despair as she coped with her husband's terminal cancer diagnosis. This is all so sad. Ryan, a school psychologist at Oyster River Middle School in Durham, which is wild. It's like you're a psychologist and your wife is having a full mental breakdown, was reportedly diagnosed with glioblastoma, a highly aggressive form of brain cancer. In a TikTok posted just 2 days before police made the horrific discovery, Emily told her nearly 8,000 followers, which, and this makes sense why we didn't really get to it, because 8,000 followers on TikTok might as well be 3, that her children were, and this is as someone who has 8,000 followers because I don't go on TikTok that much, that her children were definitely struggling, and she herself had been really depressed as she tried to restore healthy habits and normalcy in a home as her husband's health declined. I am determined to create normalcy, she said in her grim video. I have been struggling so much and really depressed, and just, can you pull this up if you can find it, Mike? Unless they pulled it down. The cops might have pulled it down. I have been struggling so much and really depressed and just have really become reclusive and just wanted to be with my kids and my husband. Well, you're going to be with them. That being said, I'm making a change and it is starting today, and I'm making a point to get out of my depression and do this for my family. The tragedy remains under investigation. Whew! Damn. Apologies to all men. I thought it was you yet again, but this wasn't you. This was her. Do I have an inkling that it was because she was unsupported by society? Yeah, but there's no excuse to ever kill your kids. Again, you can convince me that you needed to kill your spouse. You can never convince me that you needed to kill your kids. Go ahead.
She now has... the TikTok is private, and I'm seeing a number of different posts about living with glioblastoma and a bunch of different stuff like that. Thoughts on how to transition a baby to bed, sleeping strategies, but yeah, the TikTok is now private.
Okay, so
none of that
the authorities
viewable.
did that because they know how us little scavengers are. Okay, well, that's our DV from this week, but it is, you know. Men rejoice because a woman this week, a woman did it, but don't get used to it. But yeah, that was quite a crazy story. And then let's go into we have some really interesting municipal stories from this week. So Crystal sent this one to me about the mayor of Hoboken, and this is from patch.com. Hoboken mayor tells Bondi he won't comply with sanctuary city reversal. Hoboken's mayor said the city will look at revising its sanctuary city law and criticized the letter from Attorney General Bondi. Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala sent a letter this week to Attorney General Pamela Bondi saying the city will not reverse its laws passed in 2018 regarding immigrant protections, despite demands from federal officials. Hoboken is one of at least 18 cities across the country that has passed laws colloquially known as sanctuary jurisdiction or fair and welcoming city rules in the last 10 years. U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi published a list earlier this month of states, counties, and cities that have passed such laws, saying the jurisdictions must work with the federal government on immigration laws and on enforcement. In a letter dated August 13th, posted below, Bondi's office gave Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala a deadline of August 19th to respond. Individuals using their official position to obstruct federal immigration enforcement efforts and facilitating or inducing illegal immigration may be subject to criminal charges, she wrote, saying that the federal government and local U.S. attorneys' offices should investigate such incidents. The letter also noted that certain conditions regarding immigration could be added to federal grants received by the cities in question. Bala's letter in response on Tuesday, posted below, said that Bondi's office should not have emailed him directly, as he and the city are currently involved in litigation with her office, as are several other cities. He said threatening local officials with criminal charges wasn't legal. Bala and other mayors respond. He said he has referred to, the matter to the Florida Bar and to New Jersey's Office of Attorney Ethics. We will not capitulate to your demand that we rescind our policies and in this case our morals and values, he wrote in his letter. Similar to the rest of America, Hoboken is a city of immigrants. He said that in light of recent events, the city may look to revise their laws to solidify protections. On Tuesday, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu also said she will not comply with all of the federal government's demands, according to published reports. And you can read the full letters online if you are interested in doing so. But today's municipal section really highlights a lot of mayors kind of, well, not all doing good things, because we will get to the mayor of Miami soon, but some mayors doing really good things.
Interesting note here.
Yes.
From Crystal. We were just emailing back and forth because I asked her for a thumbnail change.
Thank you. And then, like, you have no idea. I read this whole other article on it, and now I'm actually now concerned about my own mental health because, like, I swore this was the reverse.
So don't be concerned because, according to Crystal, the first mention of the wife being the killer came out at 8 p.m. today.
Oh, okay. Thank God. Thank you, Crystal, because I literally was sitting here being like, Corinne, are you having obviously I'm gonna have to continue doing the show, but in my head I was like, Corinne, like I hadn't read that in your post article, but I had read a whole other article on the thing, and I'm like, I was, and then I was like, oh no, I have to go home and burn all my feminist, like Germaine Greer novels because I've gone too far into it again. And sometimes I don't know what happens in the summer, but sometimes I get too feminist during the summer and I have to cut off my feminism. Okay, thank you. So I was already on air, so I am not hallucinating. So this is actually so interesting and so perfect for this show because I bet we've seen this blueprint so many times that when people find that a whole family has been slain, they go, oh, husband did it, case closed. And but I mean, that should not be happening if you're a journalist. Like, if you're reporting on it, you really better know. And again, like, I'm just podcasting like as a dipshit here, but
they had to meet people for happy hour drinks. Get it into the copy desk. Keep it moving.
God, now I want to retrace my steps and find out where that original article was, because like thank you. I like literally thought I was having a nervous breakdown and was going to have to like literally reach out to my therapist. Okay. Well, I feel bad. I mean, I'm not happy because the family was still slain, but I do feel better about my mental health. Whew.
Take a deep breath.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. God bless. And also, I was thinking like Crystal's super smart and on top of it. So I feel like if I had made a mistake, she would have noticed as well. That's crazy. Had you read anything before we covered it today about this?
About the
New Hampshire murder?
No.
Okay, because I was like, I mean, also I'm sure it's because of my algorithm and the kinds of things and like the fact that I do intake a lot of domestic violence stories, that this one was, served to me many times today. But yeah, okay.
No, I think they try to keep any stories about a husband getting murdered by his wife far away from me.
From you personally?
They don't want me checking out the warning signs, dude. That's how they want me to go.
No, I don't think. Okay, so all right. So that's actually crazy. So wait, now I want to see, are there articles with like noting corrections or saying, hey, we misreported Hampshire murder suicide was the mom, not the dad? Like, that's just like interesting. Yeah, because now when you do it, all the things have like one, and they're all like 1 hour ago. This is, wait, did I read it in USA Today? Where did I read this? According to the murder, gunshot wounds. I'm trying to. All right, so there was reports where they don't say who did it at all. Where that if they didn't report it at all, my mind very well could have filled in the blank, because as we had the discussion earlier in the show about memory, the mind doesn't like gaps, and so it would fill it in for me. Where the hell did I read? I can tell where I read because it's in purple already. So I read that one. Yeah. Oh, and I think I might have read it on Instagram. I just want to retrace my steps to find out how this happened, because again, like this is kind of what this whole, show is about, and it is so interesting that was not revealed until 8 p.m. Let's see, without a country folder here. Let's see. This is where I got it. I got it from Everytown. I knew I read this and I wasn't just making shit up. Thank God. Okay. So it's from my original source is Everytown, which is, the against gun violence, on Instagram. And, Everytown I would expect to have a little bit more journalistic integrity, but they're not, they're a nonprofit. They're not held to journalistic standards. But what they did was they posted a screenshot from CBS News with the headline, "Parents and 2 children found dead in Madbury, New Hampshire, home in apparent murder-suicide." Then the caption states, and this is a day ago, so yesterday, the caption states, "Tragic. Emily Long, 34, and her 2 young children, Parker 8 and Ryan 6, were shot and killed at their home in Madbury, New Hampshire. Authorities believe Emily's husband carried out the attack before fatally shooting himself. A toddler was found unharmed in the home when police arrived. This tragedy comes just 1 week after Larica Gaines Smith, 41, and her children Christian, 15, and Kingsley, 11, were shot and killed by Larica's husband at their home in Alabama. A domestic violence murder-suicide occurs more than once a day in America. 93% of these tragedies involve guns, and 95% involve a male partner killing women. And this just goes to show someone like Everytown, who's trying to make a point about gun violence and who is committing it, is sometimes so thirsty for like kind of what they're fighting for to be so that they can like rush to a judgment. All right. I feel so much better though, because I was like, I fucking know I sourced this. And so now we know, unfortunately, and this is like something that previously I would have said, like a nonprofit is actually a rather trusted source of information online. fine, like a step above, like just your friend sharing some fucking infograph that you don't know where it's from. But this is a lesson learned the hard way for me and you guys, me certainly, and anyone, else who's made the same mistake. But today that, it just shows how easy it is for misinformation to spread, especially when it starts, when it's initiated from something that's really reputable, like Everytown for Gun Safety. This is a nonprofit that I think most people are familiar with. It has 1 million Instagram followers, and this just shows how easy it is for misinformation to spread. And I'm looking, like, this was posted a day ago. I mean, obviously this was only an hour and a half ago that we got this information. They don't have a correction up yet. The first comment is not all man, always a man. And it's like, damn, should I leave a comment just to start problems? Justin, it was the mom. I'm going to do it. I wrote Justin, it was the mom. Damn. Yeah, so they haven't.
Now I'm going to go sign up for an account and start trashing women.
No. Yeah, that's so crazy. And let me look at their stories real quick to see if they have updated anything. No. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, I'm glad that thank you for coming with me as I retrace my steps to make sure that I wasn't having a mental breakdown. I felt so irresponsible. Okay. I felt so irresponsible, and I was like, "Oh no!" I was like, "Do I really hate men that much?" Because I'm not even really having an I hate men summer, if we're being honest. I feel like all right, All right, let's move on to Mayor of Baltimore. Speaking of good men and men doing good things, I love what the Mayor of Baltimore is doing. Shout out to Nikita Dump Truck on Instagram. She is a great follow. I think I've talked about her once before on here, but her handle's Nikita Dump Truck. Her name is Nikita Redcar. But she is a great fun follow, a little pop culture, a little politics, a little news, and she kind of summarizes things in a good digestible way. But if you like something light but still informative, I think she talks about really interesting things, and she's been really active in the mayoral race here in New York City. So shout out to her for all her work on that. This is from the Washington Post, though, because when she kind of introduced me to stats, like the fact that the crime rate in Baltimore has gone down 62%, and many people are crediting the Baltimore mayor, Brandon Scott, with this. He is young. I believe he's like 40 years old, but I looked into his pathway to being the mayor. He started in city council. Well, he started being like overseeing someone who worked in the city council, I believe, then was in city council, and then kind of moved up from there. But a really fast and enthusiastic, approach to being the mayor. Like, it was an enthusiastic pathway, I'll say. But I just really love it, and I think I think it's great that we're all watching Zoran, but there are so many people across the nation who are doing great work, and I definitely want to highlight them as well. So Baltimore is seeing the city's fewest homicides in 50 years. Here's why. The city, well known for its violent crime, which is unfortunate because I really love Baltimore. So much great Edgar Allan Poe stuff there. But yeah, it is a pretty dangerous city sometimes.
And it's port disasters.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Baltimore. We had the bridge thing last year, and then another one blew up on the docks like over the weekend.
Oh, I don't even know if I knew about that one over the weekend. I knew about the one previously. Damn. So the city, well known for its violent crime, has had less than 70 people murdered this year, a nearly 23% drop from this time last year, which is really great. In 2021, shortly after starting his first term, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, Democrat, rolled out a comprehensive plan to reduce gun violence in a city that had long been troubled by one of the deadliest homicide rates in the nation. And he's a person of color. I think he's black. But that's not that does not just speak to, his approach. I think his youth actually speaks more to his approach than his race, because I looked it up, and the previous mayor of Baltimore was also a black man. So that isn't necessarily like, what it was here. And obviously we are more than our age and our race and our political party. So this could also, I want to credit Brandon Scott with, these ideas too. But I do think the fact that he's on the younger side does speak to this more like empathetic strategy that he has. So the strategy, and he has no affiliation to the Democratic Socialists of America. I also looked that up because some of the template of what I was reading into what he was doing seemed a little DSA, but he is actually just plain old Democrat. The strategy was to approach gun violence as a public health threat instead of simply a crime issue, and to treat that threat at the source by investing in violence interrupters, community organizers, and trauma-informed support systems in impacted neighborhoods. And again, I researched this a lot on a municipal level, which would also, research for a place like New York City would certainly be relevant to a place like Baltimore. And it has been, proven, usually in smaller areas, but like that crime prevention and community outreach does have a huge impact on violent crime. So I love that he actually was able to implement this and see such a drastic reduction in violent crime in a city as prominent as Baltimore and as known for violent crime as Baltimore. I think this is like such good news, and I think we should all really keep an eye on what's happening in Baltimore, and hopefully other cities will, use this template. The plan's goal: reduce shootings by 15% every year for 5 years. That's a good mayoral promise. That's a good mayoral promise. Now, 4 years in, Scott said the plan is working. As of July 1st, 68 people in Baltimore had died by homicide this year, the fewest during the first 6 months of the year in more than 5 decades. It marks a nearly 23% decrease compared with the first half of 2024. Shootings where nobody was killed have also fallen by nearly 20% compared with the same time period last year. The falling statistics, mirroring a national drop in violent crime, follow years of similar declines. Everybody plays a part, Scott said in an interview. Yes, I'm the mayor. Yes, I had to come up with and deliver this plan, but none of it works without every single one of our partners. Among them, the mayor said, are the 40 or so employees of the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement, the dozens of people who work as violence interrupters with the city's flagship gun violence reduction program, Safe Streets, the Baltimore Police Department, the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Office of the Maryland Attorney General. But most importantly, Scott said, the folks in the community. After a spike during the pandemic, homicides by guns in the United States have steadily dwindled to 17,927 in 2023, according to the most recent Centers for Disease Control data. In D.C., there have been 85 homicides this year as of July 3rd, compared with 89 during the same time last year, according to the police department data. The historically low violent crime rate in Baltimore has prompted a scramble to take credit among state and city leaders. That's the most American sentence I ever read, all of whom are acknowledging one another's roles while emphasizing their own parts. The office of Governor Wes Moore, Democrat, pointed to the $50 million in state funding to the Baltimore Police Department and additional $10.8 million to the city's state's attorney's office since he took office in 2023, which is very interesting, though, because kind of like this whole story about Mayor Brandon Scott is it would not really involve the police department, right? Because the police department, as we know it, and I'm not saying like certain cities don't have little niche programs, but the police you basically call after a crime happens. Police don't really prevent crime. Sometimes it can be argued that their presence prevents crime from happening, but they are not doing like, work the way like a nonprofit or a social worker would do that would prevent crime before it happened Mostly. So it's interesting that Governor Wes Moore is saying like, oh, this funding of the police department is what did it. I find that like an interesting argument. Under the Moore administration, state leaders and lawmakers have also focused on changes to the juvenile justice system, measures for stricter gun regulations, and coordination about experts, advocates, and officials on commissions centered on best practices for crime fighting and restorative justice. In a statement, Moore praised the all-of-the-above approach to public safety that is showing results across the state. While there is still work to be done, Moore said, it is clear that this close collaboration with all partners involved is helping Maryland boast some of the most impressive crime drops in the entire country. This is so cool. I live for stuff like this. Like I love the whole, like the template, introducing it, how you roll it out. Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, Democrat, credited the shifting philosophy of the office since he defeated former State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, Democrat, in the 2022 election. While some have criticized our office for moving beyond the policies of the previous administration, the progress we've made in reducing homicides in Baltimore tells a different story, one grounded in results, not rhetoric, Bates said in a statement. By repealing ineffective non-prosecution policies, we've empowered our police officers to re-engage fully in the mission of public safety, not only as law enforcers, but as violence interrupters working proactively in our communities. In an op-ed penned in the Baltimore Sun, the state's chief public defender, Natasha Darteague, said the intense debate sparked over who can claim credit for the fall in violent crime misses the point. Some, she said, were quick to claim credit for the drop by relying on a well-worn, tough-on-crime narrative, despite research and data that demonstrate the negative impact of incarceration and an overly punitive approach to public safety. Our daily experiences as public defenders underscore the correct answer to the question of what is causing the decline in crime, Darteague wrote. After years of investing in violence interrupters, community outreach workers, and neighborhood-based prevention initiatives, Baltimore is witnessing the fruits of this focused approach. And wildly enough, the place where I learned all of this stuff initially, and like stats on peaceful and progressive ways to actually help violent crime decline, was on the Ben & Jerry's website. Like I found a page on the Ben & Jerry's website that went through all these stats, and I did fact check them. And that was the basis, the basis for a lot of my mayoral policy started on the Ben & Jerry's website. So just so you know. She credited community organizations like the Baltimore Community Mediation Center, We Are Us, and ROCA, which works with those ages 16 to 24. The people behind these programs are the true heroes of Baltimore's crime reduction story, Darteague wrote. Scott, likewise, praised those organizations as well as what he characterized as a more targeted approach to policing at the local, state, and federal level, focusing on violent gun offenders and group violence. The strategy, he said, was informed by data work that showed the people most likely to victimize or be victimized through gun violence was contained to a narrow group. The strategy isn't about volume, he said. We are not going back to the days of arresting any and every Black person who is just outside, Scott said. Here. Partnerships with the U.S. Attorney General's office and federal law enforcement have been a critical element of this new tactic, pulling in federal resources on major criminal investigations that have brought down violent groups. Federal funding for violence prevention programs is now under threat as part of the Trump administration's budget cuts. For now, those partnerships have continued, Scott said, adding that he hopes politics don't interfere with public safety. The numbers, he said, show what's working. Homicides and non-fatal shootings dipped slightly from 2021 to 2022, but then fell off precipitously after that. In 2023, homicides fell nearly 24% compared with 2022, then fell another 23% in 2024, according to city data. In 2021, there were 726 non-fatal shootings in the city. In 2024, there were 412. Beyond those trends, carjackings are down 15% so far this year, robberies are down 22%, and auto thefts are down 34%. Scott, who recalled that people laughed at me when he first advocated for a community community-based approach doesn't see it as unusual. For us, he said, it's not optional. And it's very weird to me when people laugh at a community-based approach, because again, like, I could understand, like, conceptually, if you're like, think of it, you're like, oh, what is this, some kumbaya, hold hands, have an after-school program so people don't blow each other's brains out, non-liberal nonsense. But we have already had these stats that prove that this works, so I don't really know where the question, like, is. Like, the proof is in the numbers that already existed. Sure, they existed on the Ben & Jerry's website, but I'm sure they existed other places too. That's just where I found them. And I obviously I didn't just like, I didn't just go along with what Ben & Jerry told me. I then went sat by sat and I did find articles, like pieces with journalistic integrity that could back up all the claims that were made on the pages, before I introduced it in my own mayoral policy, but couldn't agree more. All right, finally, in our municipal segment, we're going to go and what's wrong, Mike?
The fact that you said the word finally, and my favorite story of the week is just not going to hit the docket.
No, finally in the municipal segment. This is not our last story. We're going to get to your Israeli sex offender story. Don't worry. I'm going to give you the floor, Michael. That's in Gurrrlll. Look, it's on the dot. We're going in order. I just had to go to DV because I wanted to pair it. And then we had to go off topic because the mom did it. Ugh, the mom, women, they just make everything more complicated. Am I right? So this story is about the mayor of Miami. We're doing a triple mayor story this week. This is from WACO. Alyssa. Hi, Corinne. Thanks. Because I feel sometimes like we concentrate on the Northeast too much with the municipal stuff because this is the neck of the woods that we're in. So I wanted to make sure that I'm getting other mayors. Hi, Corinne. Thanks for creating the show and running for office. I think your voice really makes a difference. I voted in my first Miami commissioner's race because of you. Love to hear it. Get out there and vote, baby. Vote in those municipal elections. Don't let them be festering with their corruption right in front of your eyes. It's disrespectful to you and the community that you live in. I found out recently the mayor of Miami and the commissioners had tried to delay the vote of the upcoming elections till 2026 to align with national votes. They claim it's to save more money, but the whole thing just stinks of something more because they tried to do this without the voters' knowledge. Yes, and I love that you caught on to that because when an election takes place actually has a major impact on voter turnout, and doing things without making it very clear and transparent, not only that it's happening, but why it's happening to voters always fucking stinks. And I'm glad that you acknowledged that and figured that out. This also comes after there was a scandal involving one of the sitting commissioners who has been accused of weaponizing his political power on his enemies. Oh, God, in quotes, because why do grown men have enemies? Like using permitters to write up phony code violations, etc. That's so funny. That's giving Andrew Cuomo. Definitely. An empty seat had opened up this year, and this commissioner backed and endorsed the winning candidate. Something is fishy, right? Quick article below to get the gist, and 2 more about the delayed vote and commissioner scandal. So we'll just do this shorter one for the sake of time. But if you're in the Miami area, definitely look into this, right? We try to highlight things on this show, and if we're not going over something that's happening in your city, I hope it inspires you to just whatever your local gazette is, just go and subscribe to it and you'll get some emails. And honestly, I know getting a lot of emails are annoying. But if you select the option where they don't email you multiple times a day, and almost every news site has this, they just put everything into one daily email for you, and you click it and you take 5 minutes to go through it, and you just see, it's just you keeping an eye on whatever is happening in your town or city to make sure that no nonsense is going down, right? I think this is so useful. And the great thing about this is, we all wonder what we can do. And I really do think when you're tracking your municipal politics and you post about that online to people in your area, Whereas I sometimes doubt, unless you have a large amount of followers, how much of an impact that is having on a national or international level. I do think, on the contrary, posting about municipal politics actually can really get shit done. And again, if we take care of problematic people on the ground level, they will not make it up any higher. And that's what we want to do. This is preventative politics that we're working on right here on this show. So Miami Commissioner Damian Pardo turns to voters in bid to move Miami elections. This is from WLRN.org. It's WLRN Public Media by Jenny Jacoby. And Miami District 2 Commissioner Damian Pardo hopes to sidestep an appeals court's rejection of a plan to move the city's elections to even-numbered years, allowing Pardo and other elected officials to remain in office an extra year by asking voters to approve the measure. So right here we have, he's saying it'll make things less confusing. We want to go along with, national stuff. But really, you're like, I'm just extending my power. And God only knows the plans that he has in this extra year of power should he, obtain it. Pardo will request a special session of the city commission later this month to place the referendum on November's ballot. The deadline for such a move is September 5th. We remain committed to increasing voter representation and decreasing electoral costs in the city of Miami, and plan to introduce legislation to place moving the election to even years on the ballot as soon as possible, Pardo said in a statement on the social media platform X. And so he's speaking to voters in a language that he thinks they will respond to, which is, it just happens that this move I'm making will give me an extra year in office, but what I'm really trying to do is save you money. And earlier, Pardo's sponsored plan to move the elections through commission decree without voter approval has been ruled unconstitutional. City officials are appealing that ruling. That's always good when a move you're making is deemed unconstitutional. That always makes me feel good. Pardo has argued that a shift to even-year voting, aligning with state and federal races, will reduce costs and boost voter turnout. So I actually agree with him that it will boost voter turnout, but, and I'd have to look into this a little bit deeper, I think a lot of people still leave the municipal things blank, especially for the kind of roles that he is vying for, right? So if, on your ballot, and this was depicted perfectly in the New York City mayoral election, right? Because you look at the numbers of people who voted for mayor, in the hundreds of thousands, and then you go all the way down to the city council elections, and obviously you're only going district by district here, so the numbers or whatever, but the numbers as you get lower and lower on the ballot, people just leave those blank for the most part, right? Which I guess is better if you're not familiar with the candidates. I do recommend not voting for anyone, I guess, rather than just filling in someone. I mean, what I recommend most of all is doing a fucking quick Google, even if it's morning of that you're going to vote, but that's what happens. So he's saying it will boost voter turnout. And yes, on years when we're voting for the president, yes, voter turnout is way higher. That doesn't mean, however, that the kind of roles that or the kind of seats that he is vying for, people are voting for, because they don't go down the ballot. They stop at the top where it's, quote, important things, and they let corruption fester on the bottom level. He also has said that change is necessary to avoid legal challenges to a separate voter referendum this November, limiting city officials to a lifetime limit of 2 terms in office. A handful of candidates for November's mayoral and commission races will be affected by the term limits proposal. A spokesperson confirmed Pardo's plans to push for a ballot measure in November, changing the city's election cycle. Pardo declined comment. In June, the city commission ignored intense public outrage to narrowly approve a plan to bypass a citywide referendum on even-year voting, prompting a lawsuit by Emilio Gonzalez, a former Miami city manager now running for mayor. In July, a judge blocked the measure, ruling it to be a violation of the state constitution. After an appeals court upheld that ruling, the city's attorneys asked for a rehearing before all 14 members of the 3rd District Court of Appeals, an exceedingly rare move that judicial experts describe as a kind of legal Hail Mary pass. If that fails, the city has said they could appeal the case yet again to the Florida Supreme Court. Good luck. Hope it's nothing like the New York Supreme Court. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for sending that in. Keep an eye on your mayor. Keep an eye on your city council. You have direct access to city council. Knock on their door. I think that actually I don't think that you're actually allowed to do that. But most city council people or assembly people probably have an office in your area. Go pay them a visit. See what's up. Say, hey, what you working on? Not in a confrontational way. Just see what they're working on. All right. Now, let's get into the story on Nicole Collier. We went on into it a little bit before. And then let me see what else we have to look at. Okay. And then we'll get to your article that we wanted. Where is that anyway? Oh, here. I see where it is. Your favorite article. So I hope you're ready to prepare and present your thoughts on this, Mike. I'm going to move it up to the top one. We also did like a little bit shorter of an episode last week because I was throwing up into a bag. So I want to give the people extra this week. Yes, Mike.
We went so long last week.
No, we went. I left. All right, we're doing it. I'm
not hating. I love it. Just please give me the time to dive into this.
I'm giving you the time. I just have to finish the main story, and then we will go. I moved it up on the document. You can even see. Okay. All right. So Nicole Collier, we have two articles on actually what's happening in this. We know redistricting is, people's favorite thing, which is interesting that we just went from this municipal story about people trying to change when the election happens. And now we see redistricting, which is another trick that people use to fuck up, the voting process. Right. And so, again, the fact that people are working this hard to change when voters show up, how they show up, and where they show up just should tell you how powerful and how meaningful voting really is. You don't have to take my word for it. All this nonsense that's going on, how people are going out of their way to change laws around voting, that right there is the proof that shows you how important it is to show up and vote. It also shows you that even when you show up and vote, politicians will go out of their way to change when the election happens or redistrict so they can get the result they want. But it should still tell you that voting does really mean a lot. So this is from the Associated Press. Texas House approves redrawn maps sought by Trump ahead of 2026 elections. The Texas House on Wednesday approved, and that's today, approved redrawn congressional maps that would give Republicans a bigger edge in 2026. Surprise, surprise, muscling through a partisan gerrymander that launched weeks of protests by Democrats and a widening national battle over redistricting. The approval came at the urging of President Donald Trump, who pushed for the extraordinary mid-decade revision of congressional maps to give his party a better chance at holding on to the U.S. House of Representatives in the 2026 midterm elections. The maps, which would give Republicans 5 more winnable seats, need to be approved by the GOP-controlled state Senate and signed by Republican Governor Wheels, Greg Abbott himself, before they become official. You know Wheels is going to do it. But the Texas House vote had presented the best chance for Democrats to derail the redraw. Democratic legislators delayed the vote by 2 weeks by fleeing Texas earlier this month in protest, and they were assigned round-the-clock police monitoring upon their return to ensure they attended Wednesday's session. The approval of the Texas maps on an 88 to 52 party line vote is likely to prompt California's Democratic-controlled state legislature this week to approve of a new House map, creating 5 new Democratic-leaning districts. So we're doing it back. But the California map would require voter approval in November. Democrats have also vowed to challenge the new Texas map in court and complained that Republicans made the political power move before passing legislation responding to deadly floods that swept the state last month. Well, of course, Texas maps openly made to help GOP. Texas Republicans openly said they were acting in their party's interest. State Representative Todd Hunter, who wrote the legislation formally creating the new map, noted that the U.S. Supreme Court has allowed politicians to redraw districts for nakedly partisan purposes. The underlying goal of this plan is straightforward: improve Republican political performance, Hunter, a Republican, said on the floor. After nearly 8 hours of debate, Hunter took to the floor again to sum up the entire dispute as nothing more than a partisan fight. What's the difference? To the whole world listening, Republicans like it and Democrats do not. Democrats said the disagreement was about more than partisanship. In a democracy, people choose their representatives, State Representative Chris Turner said. This bill flips that on its head and lets politicians in Washington, D.C. choose their voters. State Representative John H. Busey blamed the president. This is Donald Trump's map, Busey said. It clearly and deliberately manufactures 5 more Republican seats in Congress because Trump himself knows that the voters are rejecting his agenda. Redistricting becomes redistricting becomes tool nationwide in battle for U.S. House. The Republican power play has already triggered a national tit-for-tat battle as Democratic state lawmakers prepared to gather in California on Thursday to revise that state's map to create 5 new Democratic seats. This is a new Democratic Party. This is a new day. This is new energy out there all across this country, California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom said on a call with reporters on Wednesday. And we're going to fight fire with fire. A new California map would need to be approved by voters in a special election in November because that state normally operates with a nonpartisan commission, drawing the map to avoid the very sort of political brawl that is playing out. Newsom himself backed the 2008 ballot measure to create that process, as did former President Barack Obama. But in a sign of Democrats' stiffening resolve, Obama Tuesday night backed Newsom's bid to redraw the California map, saying it was a necessary step to stave off the GOP's Texas move. I think that approach is a smart, measured approach, Obama said during a fundraiser for the Democratic Party's main redistricting arm. The incumbent president's party usually loses seats in the midterm election, and the GOP currently controls the House of Representatives by a mere 3 votes. Trump is going beyond Texas in his push to remake the map. He's pushed Republican leaders in conservative states like Indiana and Missouri to also try to create new Republican seats. Ohio Republicans were already revising their map before Texas moved. Democrats, meanwhile, are mulling reopening Maryland's and New York's maps as well, which is so interesting because Trump goes on and on about how states can make decisions for themselves, and then he's whispering in these states' ears, hey, redo your map so we can get more seats. However, more Democratic-run states have commissions systems like California's or other redistricting limits than Republican ones do, leaving the GOP with a freer hand to swiftly redraw maps. New York, for example, can't draw new maps until 2028, and even then, only with voter approval. Texas Democrats decry the new maps. In Texas, there was little that outnumbered Democrats could do other than fume and threaten a lawsuit to block the map. Because the Supreme Court has blessed purely partisan gerrymandering, the only way opponents can stop the new Texas map would be by arguing it violates the Voting Rights Act, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, requirement to keep minority communities together so that they can select representatives of their choice. Democrats noted that in every decade since the 1970s, courts have found that Texas's legislature did violate the Voting Rights Act in redistricting, and that civil rights groups had an active lawsuit making similar allegations against the 2021 map that Republicans drew up. Republicans contend the new map creates more new majority-minority seats than the previous one. Democrats and some civil rights groups have countered that the GOP does that through mainly a numbers game that leads to having the number of the state's House seats that will be represented by a Black representative. State Representative Ron Reynolds noted the country just marked the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act's passage and warned GOP members about how they'd be remembered if they voted for what he called this racial gerrymander. Just like the people who were on the wrong side of history in 1965, history will be looking at the people who made the decisions in the body this day, Reynolds, a Democrat, said. Republicans hit back at criticism. Republicans spent far less time talking on Wednesday, content to let their numbers do the talking in the lopsided vote. As the day dragged on, a handful hit back against Democratic complaints. You call my voters racist, you call my party racist, and yet we're expected to follow the rules, said State Representative Katrina Pearson, a former Trump spokesperson. There are Black and Hispanic and Asian Republicans in this chamber who were elected just like you. House Republicans' frustrations at the Democrats' flight and ability to delay the vote was palpable. The GOP used a parliamentary maneuver to take a second and final vote on the map so it wouldn't have to reconvene for one more vote after Senate approval. House Speaker Dustin Burrows announced as debate started that doors to the chamber were locked and any member leaving was required to have a permission slip. The doors were only unlocked after final passage more than 8 hours later. One Democrat who refused the 24-hour police monitoring, State Representative Nicole Collier, had been confined to the House floor since Monday night. Some Democratic state lawmakers joined Collier Tuesday night for what Representative Cassandra Garcia Hernandez dubbed a sleepover for democracy. Republicans issued civil arrest warrants to bring the Democrats back after they left the state August 3rd, and Republican Governor Greg Abbott asked the state Supreme Court to oust several Democrats from office. The lawmakers also face a fine of $500 for every day that they were absent, which is like kind of nothing. I guess if it's like turns into weeks, but I wonder if they can pay that from their campaign or not. So that, and then I wanted to compliment this Mean story, which I just think is very interesting, with this Slate piece that says, is there really a hostage in the Texas Capitol? This was from this afternoon. All right. In sport, and this is by Ayman Ismail, a lawmaker is living in the House chamber. Why? In sports, the winning team doesn't get to rewrite the rules to guarantee it'll never lose again. In a democracy, the same principle should hold. Winning an election shouldn't allow a party to rewrite the rules so it's no longer accountable to the electorate. But Republicans are turning Texas into a testing ground for exactly that kind of power grab. At Donald Trump's urging, GOP lawmakers launched a mid-decade redistricting push designed to lock in their advantage. With only 62 seats in the House compared with the Republicans' 88, Democrats had no real power to stop it except by leaving. They broke quorum, fleeing the Capitol to stall the vote. Texas has seen this kind of maneuver before, but Republicans have their own countermeasure: law enforcement escorts to haul absent lawmakers back and force the legislature to function. That's where Representative Nicole Collier drew the line. Instead of returning under police guard, she stayed behind, effectively locking herself inside the chamber. Some have described her as a hostage. The legislator has referred to herself as a political prisoner. All right. But Christopher Hooks, who has spent years chronicling the mix of absurdity and high stakes that define the state's politics for Texas Monthly, says Collier's lonely protest is better understood as matching theater with theater and not a crisis. Exactly. I spoke with him about how this protest fits into Texas's, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, like, it's just hard for me to stomach as someone like, who was hoping that politics weren't as performative as the entertainment business. But Democrats are finally learning to match theater with theater. And I think this actually has legs. I spoke with him about how this protest fits into Texas's long history of political stunts, why it's struck such a nerve, and what it reveals about the current political climate in the state. This conversation has been edited and condensed for clarity. All right, so let's see. Ayman Ismail says, what the hell is happening in Texas? I'm seeing that a lawmaker is being held hostage in the House chamber. Is that true? Christopher Hooks says, the whole thing is absurd. This was ultimately caused by Donald Trump, who said, violate your rules and norms and give me a new congressional map. That was a huge breach of norms and trust in the Texas House. Democrats leaving the state was a breach to meet that breach. This is the fourth quorum break in 50 years in Texas. A quorum break happens when there's been a major violation of how democracy is supposed to work in the state. You recognize you're going to lose on an important point, so you breach the normal rules of the legislature and leave. It's happened often enough that there are rules and expectations around it. One is that once you break quorum, the state can arrest you and bring you back. That's been true every time. It's why they usually leave the state. It's why they left this time, and now the House has to put itself back together again. What we're seeing is that this still hasn't happened. Interviewer says, I see where this is going. Once you leave the legislature, both sides start playing to an external audience. There are negotiations behind the scenes to bring people back, but Democrats and Republicans are also staging political theater to win over public opinion. That was true this time, just as in past quorum breaks in 2021, 2003, and the 1970s. What feels different this time is the level of anger, especially from Republicans. In the past, the deal was basically let Democrats leave for 2 weeks, then come back, and the Republicans will get what they want. But this time, the anger from GOP voters and the base has been significant. They don't just want Democrats to return so Republicans can pass the map. They want them humiliated. Republicans have been pressuring their elected officials to, even after the Democrats came back, arrest them or find other ways to punish them. At the same time, Democrats getting a police escort back isn't unusual. The legislature has always had the power to compel attendance. Interviewer says permission slip. The Democrats came back Monday to meet the quorum for the second special section. They showed up and basically said, we give up, though not in those words. Dustin Burrows, the Republican speaker, told them that if they wanted to leave, they needed a permission slip signed by him, like in high school. And he assigned a state trooper to escort them. It's strange, but within the rules. Once members have left, he can compel their attendance and sending them home with a trooper fed into what Republicans wanted: disciplining Democrats. Most signed the slip and accepted a police escort so they'd return that day or Wednesday. Nicole Collier did not. Collier said, I'm not going to sign this permission slip. I'm not going to leave with a police escort. I'm going to stay here. I think that it's political theater to match the theater happening on the other side. Interviewer says, where exactly is she staying? Can someone actually live there? Within the chamber, there's the members' lounge, bathrooms, and some spaces where she could refresh herself. I've been told that it normally closes at 9 p.m., though I don't know if that's the case now. Once she started, other Democrat staffers and visitors came by to support her. So it's a bit like a filibuster, except she's just sitting in an empty room. Interviewer says, well, so who is Nicole Collier? Is it like her to pull a stunt like this? I'm a little bit surprised it was Collier. She has a reputation for being smart and diligent with a good mind for policy, especially in criminal justice. She's not one of the louder or more rebellious Democrats. Plenty of others seemed more likely to do this, but those people signed the slip and went home, which I would have done too. They were tired. They'd been out of the state for weeks and just wanted to be with their kids and watch TV. So yes, I was surprised it was Collier who did this. I can only speculate about what led her to do this. If nothing else, it shows good political instincts. Doing this brought national attention at a time when people were starting to forget about the Texas Democrats. In the past few years, there have been big protests at the Capitol, and this kind of strange, almost Curb Your Enthusiasm style stand reminded people of what's happening here. There was a live stream the other night with 60,000 people watching her in the middle of the night. So in this part, it's like smart. I think being able to play with public opinion and public outrage is quite smart. The interviewer says, so how do you differentiate between a stunt and an actual political crisis? I'm still not sure what to think of this. I've seen some people on social media calling this authoritarianism, and I don't really see it that way. There are things that are very worrying about what's happening in Texas. The attempt to do a mid-decade redistricting is repulsive and a violation of democratic norms in an effort to give the president a guaranteed congressional majority he can't win otherwise. That's horrible. But this quorum break is theater on both sides, and it will continue until people come back together again. They haven't yet, but they always do. Democrats privately concede that they have no way of stopping this map. If it's stopped, it will be in the courts. They won't say that in public, but eventually they'll have to return to make the chamber work. Interviewer says, and how have their Republican colleagues been handling this whole stunt? Burrows, the speaker, has been more conciliatory than statewide Republicans who've said, arrest them all, throw them out of office. Burrows hasn't been saying that. I think he knows that at the end of the day, he has to sit down with Democrats, at least to some extent, and put the House back together. But his move, sending DPS officers with Democrats, was a light touch compared to what Republicans wanted him to do. And Collier saying no was her calling Burrows' bluff. What worries me is that the Republican desire to see Democrats punished is much greater than I expected. There's real anger that may not be satisfied just by making them go home with a police escort. I wonder how that affects the House. It wasn't working well anyway. Bipartisan cooperation has been in severe decline in recent years. What the president pushed them to do may have broken it further. Going forward, I wonder if Democrats turning Collier into a hero makes the GOP want to punish them more. Right now, both sides are lashing out, and I don't know where this ends. Interviewer says, sounds like Collier's stand has put Burrows between a rock and a hard place. He's not in a good spot. Texas is a very Republican state, and the least Republican part of it is the Texas House. For years, it's been a bit of a check on whatever other people wanted to push through. Republican activists have put a lot of pressure on knocking over the current speaker and getting their own one, which has been the major friction in Texas politics for maybe 15 years. Burrows has a lot of people gunning for him, and he's been asked to do the most with this redistricting. The governor approves, the Texas Senate will approve, but Burrows has to pass it in the House while also maintaining its integrity. At the end of the day, he'll still need to work with some Democrats next session, so he's attempting to play it with a softer touch. But to his right are people like Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is running in the primary against Senator John Cornyn. Both are competing to be the hardest line against House Democrats. Cornyn got the FBI involved, but of course the agency didn't or couldn't do anything. Paxton has been talking every day about wanting the lawmakers arrested and removed from office. Governor Greg Abbott has followed his lead, and there are still some legal cases pending that could hypothetically see House Democrats removed from office. Their seats vacated. I don't think that will happen, but it's 2025. I don't know what they'll do anymore. Burrows has to walk a fine line. At the end of the day, he has to reestablish relationships and lead. So he's been asked to eat the big bowl of shit. It says unpleasant material, but it's shit handed to him by the president, and he's just trying to figure out his way through. And the last question says, how is the national Democratic leadership tied into all of this? The National Democrats, and Hakeem Jeffries in particular, really encouraged the Texans to leave the state. They tried to offer a vision for what could be accomplished, encouraging California Governor Gavin Newsom, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and others to do redistricting in their own states. When I talked to Texas Democrats before they left, there was some grumbling. They said national Democrats are pretty useless, and they're asking us to do something that's a huge burden, taking weeks out of our lives, potentially costing us a lot, but they did it anyway. Texas Democrats were trying to model something they hoped others would take up. If California, Illinois, or other states balance out what Texas does, they'll feel it was worth it. On the other hand, Republicans are now talking about drawing a map with even more Republican districts in Texas to counter what California is doing. Other Republican states may redistrict too, so the Texas Democrats threw the dice. Their contribution is mostly done, and now it's up to everyone else to figure out what to make of it. So I hope that, I think that interview was, I don't love an interview to read on this show, but I actually thought that one had a lot of good information in it. Now we move on to our final story. Thank you for waiting. This is our girl story of the week, and Michael has been absolutely chomping at the bit to discuss this story on here. So let's get absolutely right into it. Why is this not loading at all, though? Oh boy. I'll just stacked against the. All right, I have to pull up something else because this just does not load at all for me. Is that Reuters one loading for you, Mike?
I don't know. I got about 15 articles on this guy up. So
which one do you recommend then if the Reuters one isn't working? Because I actually read this one earlier, but
you know what? Just because again, I want to prove that I am some kind of decency and normalcy first.
Okay.
I have statements between the DA, who was the arresting DA of the case, and a conflicting statement from the federal prosecutor for the state of Nevada, who was appointed by the Trump White House. And they have conflicting stories, and it makes it seem like this is maybe not as bonkers as I initially thought it was.
Okay, well, there was so here.
Are you talking about the Reuters article that says no special treatment?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, let me see. That was just not coming up anymore at all. But so 8 hours ago, there's a rather new article from Axios that looks interesting. I'm just gonna go into this right now because I have to go past the paywall, but it says MAGA erupts after Israeli official charged in child sex ring flees U.S. And this was updated up as of 3 hours ago. So let's just go into this to give people just a foundation of what's happening here, and then you could talk further. So MAGA is pushing the Trump administration to explain why an Israeli official who was arrested in an undercover child sex sting in Nevada was allowed to leave the U.S. after posting bail. Why it matters. The outrage marks the latest fissure between Israel and MAGA, which already faces a generational divide over how much the U.S. should support Israel amid the war and humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Driving the news, Tom Artyom Alexandrovich, a senior Israeli cybersecurity official, was arrested during an undercover operation in Nevada targeting, in quotes, child sex predators, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department announced on Friday. Alexandrovich posted a $10,000 bail without appearing before a judge and quickly fled to Israel, raising questions about why his passport was not confiscated. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson told the Las Vegas Review-Journal that the handling of the case was standard and that the State Department denied that the U.S. government intervened. But acting U.S. Attorney Sigal Chattah, whose jurisdiction covers Nevada, posted on social media, the individual who fled our country should have had his passport seized by the state authorities. He must be returned immediately to face justice. Chattah said that the Attorney General Pam Bondi was outraged and placed calls to both her and FBI Director Kash Patel. What they're saying, MAGA influencers are up in arms, demanding the Trump administration push Israel for Alexandrovich's swift extradition to the U.S. to stand trial. Department of Justice should file federal charges and demand immediate extradition. Podcaster Jack, how do you say his last name? Pasabic? Wrote on
I believe
X.
it's Pasabic.
Pasabic wrote on X. I know we've talked about him before. Two House Republicans known for their criticism of Israel, Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, also posted about the case. What is going on here? Why would the United States allow a foreign government official charged with a child sex crime to avoid prosecution? Tucker Carlson wrote in his newsletter. Some voices, I should subscribe to that. Some voices have taken specific aim at Chattah, who was born in Israel. The U.S. Attorney General who released him is Israeli-born Sigal So if it's Israel, is it Chata? It might be Chata. Sigal Chata makes sense now, posted Candace Owens, who misstated Chata's role. Chata's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the backlash. Between the lines, parts of MAGA's base have long obsessed over the deep state, which originally referred to a supposed cabal of pedophilic elites who control the government. A slice of the far right also promotes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Israel and Jews secretly pulling the strings in Washington. Those two threads intersected with the case of Jeffrey Epstein, who some conspiracy theorists allege was an Israeli intelligence asset who used his underage sex trafficking ring to blackmail global elites. Zoom out, it's not just conspiracy theorists fueling MAGA's growing skepticism of the U.S. relationship with Israel. The America First movement is fractured more than ever over whether to view Israel as a sacred ally or another foreign government that takes advantage of the U.S. Those divides are being supercharged by the war in Gaza, and every controversy over Israel will likely be amplified within the movement for the foreseeable future. All right. Thoughts, Mike? So I thought I just wanted to get I wanted to get a template down, and then I wanted to figure it out for you.
So, I mean, I read a little bit more into Wolfson's description of handling it as a standard case, and apparently in Nevada, I've never seen this to be a thing ever, where you can just post bail, and before you even see a judge, you're out of your cell, you're free to go until charges are formally brought against you, I guess. Because the interesting thing about this is they went to Chudda, who was referenced in that article, right? She hops on immediately, and in this very performative way is like, what is going on here? These liberal judges have let a sex offender out. They didn't take his passport. And it's like, there is some precedent. There is some precedent for taking a sex offender's passport. In one instance, there was like a teacher at a school who they were like, when they were going over the bail terms, I guess, after he was charged, they had him remander his passport.
Okay. Look at this.
So it is something that's within their purview, but according to Wolfson, who's the DA of Clark County, he said, look, this was like a sting operation we were doing. 8 people got caught in it. They were all treated exactly the same. Anybody can just give us 10, like, you know, he said it was a predetermined amount set by the judge. So the judge is like, you know, for this level of crime, if you give us 10 grand, you automatically get bail. I'm guessing, assuming you have like, you know, no priors, or they, you know, assume you're a flight risk for any other reason. They said, this guy doesn't seem like a crazy flight risk. They said, other than the fact that he's an Israeli citizen, what makes you think he's a flight risk?
Right.
And it's like, you know, one of the other attorneys was quoted as saying that people have done drug court from Ireland. Like, somebody got caught on a drug charge and they handled all of their sentencing back and forth dealings with the court via Zoom. So it is possible. It's just, I mean, when I see this many people popping up, when I see the DA herself saying, this liberal judge let this person out, right, and this is a travesty of justice, but when asked for comment, the federal prosecutor who could bring heftier charges against these 8 people who were caught in this sting, she said, well, I mean, that's Wolfson's investigation. I'm not going to take it away from his office.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so this is all just grandstanding and nonsense. You guys are all pointing fingers at each other, and you all just let this dude walk out the door. Right? There's a pretty good chance that this is going to get swept under the rug. This guy is never going to come back to face investigation. And it's like, I'm genuinely questioning now, looking at it, like, if that is the policy we have in place, is it that, you know, we're quote unquote corrupt from the inside, or have I was reading about this dude in Italy who I got super into. It's this guy by the name of Manin. He was the first one to like revolt against the Habsburgs and turn Italy into a republic. And his whole thing was just looking at the antiquated law system that they had. They said, these guys have been in power for like 400 years. There's been doctrines and decrees that they forgot about. I'm just going to look up what the laws are and use those to exploit them out of governmental positions, out of power.
So exactly what Donald Trump is doing. Okay.
Not really. More like a thing where it's like, you have allowed tyranny to exist in our land. I am turning the sword of tyranny back on you, to the point where he was arrested by the government. The people revolted, came to get him out of jail, and he said, I need to see the signed warrant that says you're allowed to let me out. Like, he was that much of a stickler for the law.
Interesting.
So what I'm wondering is like, is it a thing where it's like our system is so exploitable by design that as long as you always have a slush fund where you can easily access 10 to 50 grand to get you out of anything, can you just skate by whatever in this country? And that's kind of within the books.
I think if you're rich enough or famous, you can kind of always get out of it, unless fame every now and then will work against you when someone wants to make an example out of you, i.e. Paris Hilton drunk driving. But other than that, it usually helps, i.e. O.J. Simpson. But apparently the typical practice in the U.S. is that when someone is charged with a serious crime like a sex crime, the court often imposes conditions of bail to ensure the defendant appears in court and does not pose a danger to others. Confiscating a passport or ordering it surrendered is common but not automatic. This is usually applied when the defendant has international ties or a history of travel, which would be relevant here because he has Israeli citizenship, correct?
Yeah, I mean he's in Netanyahu's government.
Right. Yeah. So he's just but he has also as American or no?
No, he was in America going to a tech conference. He went onto an app called Pure, started messaging with a girl.
I knew this was your area of expertise. Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
Dude shows up with condoms in pocket to meet someone who, per the conversations, according to the company that was like running this sting, the undercover officer like made it clear that they were 15 years old.
Ew.
The guy waived his Miranda rights when he was arrested. He said, I thought that I was meeting up with an 18-year-old. They pressured me to bring condoms to this meeting. I just wanted to take her to a Cirque du Soleil show.
Honestly, someone saying that I want to take you to a Cirque du Soleil show and not have sex with you, I think that should be investigated further.
Look, you're on the Pure app. It's because you're looking to hook up.
What's the Pure app?
It's like supercharged Tinder.
Oh, let me look at this. Pure. It's a dating app?
I mean, yes.
Is it for religious people?
No,
it's an anonymous dating app.
I would say it's like a more accurately defined as a hookup app.
Dude, the first line, I was like, this is trouble. Pure is a dating app for curious people to show up in their most playful version of themselves. And you know what that version is, guys? It's a My Little Pony suit. It's a furry. It's a fox with a hole where the anus is. That's what that is. Holy shit.
Love is a Battlefield in the chat is asking, isn't that entrapment? But
I'm sorry. Who? What's it?
Someone in the chat is asking if that behavior is entrapment.
What the cops were doing to lure. I mean, they do that all the time though with child predators. I don't know. I mean, is that entrapment?
I don't know. It feels like entrapment when YouTubers do it, if I'm being honest.
I agree. I don't like when YouTube, but I mean, the whole America loved the show To Catch a Predator. That was the whole premise of the show.
Yeah, America also loved cops, and that was about.
That was like very, very like frowned upon in my household. My mom always thought that was a problematic show. But that, you know, my mom is very ahead of her time. To Catch a Predator. God, I didn't like that show, but 94% of people online did like it. And it was on the air from 2004 to 2007 with Chris Hansen.
He said people like lions. People like watching lions eat gladiators too.
Ew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When in Rome, as they say.
Yeah. All right. So federal. Let me see. The court wants to limit. Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's like not crazy that they didn't confiscate it. It says judges have broad discretion to impose conditions under the Bail Reform Act for federal cases or state equivalents. Conditions must be the least restrictive necessary to ensure court appearance and community safety. If the passport isn't confiscated, sometimes judges only impose travel restrictions, GPS monitoring, or check-ins with pretrial services. So it just seems like, it doesn't seem like it makes sense that he was able to leave the country. My thing is like, it takes the government so long to file things. Like, did he just immediately go to the airport after he made bail and catch the next flight out, and like the paperwork didn't go through in time? Because I could 100% see that happening with like political administrative sloppiness. You
just see the cup drop like usual suspects.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'd imagine he's flying private. Like, I'm assuming it's a situation where the moment he posts bail, he can drive to the nearest private airport, jump on some plane that is waiting for him at every airport in the country.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I mean, he's a senior cybersecurity official, which is like, you know, if we are saying that AI is the next battlefield, then he's very important to the security of Israel.
So then you most likely wouldn't even be showing a passport to anyone until you arrive in Israel. And if you are a citizen, they're not really going to look at it.
Right.
So this makes sense now.
I think he was getting out of the country one way or another. Like, I don't think that would have stopped him. But, you know, I'm also seeing that this guy has some ties to Grok, which is also not great.
Yeah, I don't fully understand Grok. I see it on X. Like, can you give me a summary of like what that is?
Well, actually, it's the company that owns Twitter now. It's X's AI platform.
Okay, so that's what I thought it was, because they will always ask on X, like, can you confirm this, Grok? So that's all it is. That's because that's excuse me. I thought it was some kind of a robot.
No, so it's like, yeah.
Well,
like,
AI is a robot. I mean, I call AI a robot. I understand it's artificial intelligence, but I just call it a robot.
But
yeah.
it's so I mean, like, if you think about it, right? There's ChatGPT, there's Google's AI programs, and then probably the next biggest one is Grok. And it's like, I don't know, man. You have a lot of access to the back end of a social media platform that a lot of teenagers are on.
Right.
It's a little weird to be caught up in a pedophile sting and have that much access to.
Well, it's just weird to be in intelligence anyway, because like, it's also crazy that like he got caught, because it's like, if there's one person who's not going to be caught, it should be someone who's in intelligence. You should know how to cover your footsteps.
I feel like that's why you go on anonymous dating apps in a place like Las Vegas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where it's loosey-goosey. Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, I hope this was everything you hoped it would be and more, Michael. And then just on a quick note, it looks like the Target just named a new CEO as their profits continue to plummet after boycotts, from people of color and LGBTQ people. So, exactly, hitting people in the wallet is really always the best approach. So. New CEO in, old CEO out, and we'll see what changes or apologies or pandering moves Target makes towards us going into the holiday season. I'm excited to see it. In the meantime, that is our show. Thank you so much for joining us on Without a Country. All hail to Christopher Fungi, our amazing dictator. Thank you to my capitalist pigs, my cuties, and to everyone who listens to or watches this show. I appreciate you so much for being here, for taking an interest in the world, in your country, in your community, and for critically thinking and fact checking. These are all really good things. And if in a society where we wonder that, like, what can I do? Am I doing anything? Am I helping? I truly think like being able to read the news and differentiate fact from fiction, and just like the willingness to sometimes be incorrect or maybe agree with a party that is not the one you usually vote for is a big step in the right direction. Mike, did you have something to promote that you wanted to promote? Their mic is not on.
Yes. Tomorrow night, actually, I have Anxiety Attack at New York Comedy Club. I got Wolfgang Hunter, Naeem Ali, just added Maddie Mays, very funny comedian from LA. It's going to be a good time. Head over to NewYorkComedyClub.com for tickets. And two big fights coming up in September and October for the Armored League. Get tickets at thearmoredleague.com.
Very fun. Lots of good stuff going on. And of course, you can go to the Linktree link in my bio, as I said at the top of the show. Los Angeles, we have Gash, October 22nd at the Comedy Store. New York City, we have Guys We Fucked Slutsgiving at the New York Comedy Festival happening November 14th, which is a Friday, 8 p.m. at the Crown Hill Theater. A love letter to 12 years of fanship and fucking. I just made that up. That's not the promo for it at all. And then, of course, make sure to please vote for my panel at South by Southwest. All of those links are in the Linktree link in my bio on Instagram and on X. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be a Patreon subscriber, head over to patreon.com/withoutaCountry. In the meantime, subscribe to our YouTube page at Without a Country and follow us on Instagram, Without a Country Podcast. I'm at Philanthropy Gal on Instagram and all social media. Mike's at Them Harrington. I appreciate you. Oh, and then also, I don't think I didn't see that one of the Miscaviges just opened a TikTok account, so I'll be getting into that. I did send that to Mike, so we'll figure out where Shelly Miscavige is if it's the last thing we do. All right, peace. Have a great week. Bye.